darkness must always yield to light, and light to darkness. This eternal dance between night and day isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's one of the oldest stories in Greek mythology, a tale of two primordial goddesses locked in an endless cycle that governs the rhythm of existence itself. Before there were gods on Mount Olympus, before the earth took shape from formless chaos, there was Nyx, the goddess of night. Born from chaos itself, Nyx emerged as one of the first and most powerful beings in existence. She wasn't simply darkness personified. She was the very essence of mystery, dreams, and the unknown that lurks in shadows. Ancient Greeks imagined Nyx as a figure of extraordinary beauty and terrible power. Draped in dark robes woven from the very fabric of darkness, she would spread her wings across the heavens, bringing the sweet relief of night to the world. Even Zeus, the mighty king of gods, feared to anger Nyx. Such was her primordial power, dating back to the very beginning of creation. From the same primordial forces came Hemera, the personification of day. Where Nyx brought darkness, Hemera brought light and clarity. She embodied the brightness of noon, the warmth of sunlight, and the transparency of daylight hours. The Greeks saw her as a radiant figure, her presence dispelling shadows and revealing the world in all its vibrant colors. Together, these two goddesses enacted an endless cycle that would become the very heartbeat of time itself. As the ancient Greeks told it, Nyx and Hemera shared a great house at the edge of the world, but they could never dwell there together. When Nyx entered their celestial home, bringing night to the world, Hemera would depart, taking her light to the other side of the earth. When Hemera returned, Nyx would leave, maintaining their eternal dance. This perpetual exchange wasn't seen as a conflict, but rather a necessary balance. The Greeks understood that both night and day were essential for life itself. During Hemera's reign, humans would work, build, and thrive in the revealing light of day. But it was during Nyx's dominion that dreams would come, rest would restore, and the mysteries of existence could be contemplated in the velvet darkness. Nyx wasn't alone in her nocturnal realm. She was mother to a host of children who embodied various aspects of night: Hypnos, the god of sleep; Thanatos, death personified; the Waniroi, who brought dreams; and the Morai, the three fates who spun the thread of every life. Each of these beings emerged from the dark womb of night, shaping the experiences of gods and mortals alike. The ancient Greeks saw profound meaning in this cycle. They understood that light and darkness weren't opposing forces, but complementary aspects of existence. Just as day needs night, and night needs day, they recognized that life itself is a balance of revelation and mystery, action and rest, clarity and dreams. This understanding shaped their daily lives and religious practices. Certain rituals could only be performed during the night, when Nyx's presence made the veil between worlds thinner. Others required the clear light of Hemera, when truth and transparency ruled. This cosmic dance influenced everything from farming practices to religious festivals, embedding itself deeply in Greek culture. The story of Nyx and Hemera resonates even today, reminding us of the importance of cycles and balance in our lives. In our modern world of artificial light and 24-hour activity, their tale speaks to something primal within us: the need for both activity and rest, for both illumination and shadow. Scientists now understand the biological importance of the day-night cycle, how it regulates our circadian rhythms and influences our health. Yet thousands of years ago, the Greeks captured this wisdom in their mythology, personifying these forces as goddesses locked in an eternal dance. When we witness the sun setting and the stars emerging, we're watching the same celestial ballet that inspired the ancient Greeks. Every sunset is Hemera departing. Every dawn is Nyx yielding to her counterpart. This endless cycle continues, maintaining the rhythm that has governed life since time began. In a world that often seems chaotic and unpredictable, the story of Nyx and Hemera reminds us that some patterns are eternal. Their dance continues, as it has since the beginning, marking time, governing life, and maintaining the delicate balance between light and shadow that makes our existence possible. Perhaps next time you watch the sun set or rise, you'll think of these two ancient goddesses, still performing their eternal dance across the cosmos, still maintaining the sacred rhythm of night and day that has shaped life since the dawn of time itself. Imagine being the only daughter in a family of 101 children. In the grand epic of Mahabharata, this extraordinary destiny belonged to one princess, Dusala, the sole sister of the 100 Kaurava brothers. Her story is a testament to the mysterious ways of divine will and the intricate tapestry of fate that shapes our existence. In the ancient kingdom of Hastinapura, Queen Gandhari, wife of King Dhritarashtra, received a powerful blessing from Lord Shiva. She would be blessed with 100 sons. However, the path to motherhood took an unexpected turn that would reshape the destiny of an entire dynasty. During her pregnancy, Gandhari carried a single mass for an unusually long period of 2 years. Growing impatient and disturbed by news of Kunti's firstborn son, she struck her womb in frustration. This action resulted in the emergence of a hard mass of flesh, leaving her devastated and confused about the fate of her blessed 100 sons. The great sage Vyasa, known for his divine wisdom and supernatural abilities, came to her aid. He instructed Gandhari to prepare 101 pots filled with clarified butter and special herbs. The mass was divided into 101 pieces, and each piece was placed in these pots. These vessels were then sealed and stored in a secure chamber, carefully maintained under specific conditions. Among these 101 pieces, one was notably different from the others. This piece would eventually develop into Dusala, marking her unique position as the only daughter among the 100 Kaurava brothers. The divine intervention that led to her birth alongside her brothers remains one of the most mystical events in Hindu mythology. As time passed, the first to emerge from these pots was Duryodhana, the eldest of the Kauravas. Following him came his 99 brothers, and finally, Dusala emerged, a princess whose destiny would be intertwined with both glory and tragedy. Her birth was celebrated throughout the kingdom, seen as a beautiful balance to the overwhelming masculine energy of her 100 brothers. Growing up in the royal palace of Hastinapura, Dusala's life was anything but ordinary. While her brothers engaged in warfare training and political education, she developed her own unique perspective on the unfolding events around her. Being the only daughter, she was deeply cherished by her parents and brothers, particularly Duryodhana, who showed her special affection. Dusala's life took a significant turn when she was married to Jayadratha, the king of Sindhu. This alliance was strategic, aimed at strengthening the political ties between Hastinapura and Sindhu. However, this marriage would later play a crucial role in the Great War of Kurukshetra, where the actions of her husband would have far-reaching consequences. The complexity of Dusala's position became evident during the Great War. She found herself torn between loyalty to her brothers and the reality of the conflict that engulfed her family. Her husband Jayadratha became a key figure in the war, particularly in the events leading to the death of Abhimanyu, Arjuna's son. Through all the turmoil, Dusala maintained her dignity and strength. When most of her brothers fell in the war, and her husband met his fate at the hands of Arjuna, she faced these tragedies with remarkable resilience. Her story teaches us about the strength required to maintain one's dharma in the face of overwhelming odds. In Hindu philosophy, Dusala's birth and life represent the concept of divine balance. In a family dominated by masculine energy, she brought the essential feminine presence that completed the cosmic harmony. Her existence reminds us that in the grand design of the universe, every soul has a unique purpose and role to play. The significance of Dusala's story extends beyond the boundaries of the Mahabharata. She symbolizes the importance of maintaining one's identity and dignity, even in the most challenging circumstances. Her life teaches us about the complexity of family bonds, the weight of destiny, and the strength required to navigate through the storms of life. In modern context, Dusala's story resonates with themes of individuality, family dynamics, and the challenge of maintaining one's principles in complex situations. Her unique position as the only daughter among 100 brothers offers valuable insights into handling exceptional circumstances with grace and courage. As we reflect on Dusala's story, we learn that being different is not a weakness, but a source of unique strength. In a world that often demands conformity, her tale reminds us that our unique position in life, no matter how challenging, serves a greater purpose in the cosmic order of things. The story of Dusala, the princess among warriors, continues to inspire and teach us about the delicate balance between destiny and free will, between family duty and personal truth, and between the masculine and feminine energies that govern our universe. Imagine a world where dragons command the seas, where mirrors hold divine powers, and where every tree and stone pulses with sacred energy. This is the realm of Japanese mythology, where reality and magic dance together in an eternal embrace, shaping a culture that continues to captivate our imagination today. In the beginning, there was only chaos, a formless void where heaven and earth were one. From this primordial soup emerged the first deities, the kami, who would shape the world we know. As their celestial spear stirred the cosmic waters, the first drops that fell became the Japanese archipelago, a divine creation that would become the stage for countless mythological tales. At the heart of Japanese mythology stands Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess. Born from the left eye of the creator deity Izanagi, she rules the heavens with grace and power. But even gods face struggles, as shown in the famous tale of her retreat into a cave. When her brother Susanoo, the storm god, wreaked havoc in her heavenly domain, Amaterasu withdrew into a cave, plunging the world into darkness. Only through the clever plan of other deities, involving a mirror, jewels, and a sacred dance, was she finally lured out, returning light to the world. The relationship between gods and humans in Japanese mythology is uniquely intimate. Unlike the distant deities of other cultures, the kami exist in everything around us, in mountains, rivers, trees, and even everyday objects. This belief system, known as Shinto, teaches that the divine is not separate from nature, but is nature itself. Every rustle of leaves could be the whisper of a forest spirit, every unexpected event the work of unseen forces. Japanese mythology teems with supernatural creatures known as yokai. These beings range from the mischievous to the malevolent, from the shape-shifting kitsune fox spirits to the mysterious kappa water imps. The terrifying Oni demons and the ethereal Tengu mountain spirits populate tales that have been passed down through generations, serving as both entertainment and moral instruction. One of the most beloved figures in Japanese mythology is Inari, the deity of fertility, rice, and prosperity. Accompanied by white fox messengers, Inari's shrines dot the Japanese landscape, marked by distinctive red torii gates. These foxes, believed to possess powerful magic, can transform into human form, leading to countless tales of mystery and deception. The imperial family of Japan traces its lineage directly to the gods through Ninigi, grandson of Amaterasu. According to legend, he descended from heaven bearing 3 sacred treasures: a mirror representing wisdom, a sword symbolizing courage, and a jewel embodying benevolence. These imperial regalia remain powerful symbols in Japanese culture, connecting the present to its mythological past. Dragons hold a special place in Japanese mythology, different from their Western counterparts. Japanese dragons are wise, water-dwelling beings associated with rainfall and good fortune. The Dragon King's underwater palace, Ryugujo, features in many tales, including the famous story of Urashima Taro, who spent what seemed like days in this magical realm, only to return home to find centuries had passed. The concept of transformation runs deep in Japanese mythology. Tales abound of humans turning into animals, objects gaining consciousness, and spirits taking physical form. The story of the crane wife, where a grateful crane transforms into a beautiful woman to marry her rescuer, reflects the Japanese belief in the fluid boundaries between the natural and supernatural worlds. Modern Japan still pulses with these ancient beliefs. Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples stand amid gleaming skyscrapers. People still observe traditions rooted in mythology, from New Year's visits to shrines to seasonal festivals honoring local kami. Contemporary anime and manga draw heavily from these ancient tales, reimagining gods and yokai for new generations. The influence of Japanese mythology extends far beyond Japan's shores. Its unique aesthetic and philosophical elements have inspired countless works of art, literature, and entertainment worldwide. The emphasis on harmony between humans and nature, the respect for unseen forces, and the belief in transformation and renewal continue to resonate in our modern world. These myths remind us that the extraordinary lies within the ordinary, that divinity can be found in the simplest aspects of nature, and that the line between the magical and the mundane is thinner than we might think. In a world increasingly dominated by technology and rationality, Japanese mythology offers an enchanting alternative perspective. One where every sunrise is the work of Amaterasu, where every unexplained occurrence might be the doing of a playful yokai, and where the sacred still dwells in the everyday world around us. Did you know that one of the most common misconceptions in mythology is thinking Thor belongs to Greek legends? While Marvel movies have made Thor a household name, this powerful god of thunder actually hails from Norse mythology, the rich tapestry of stories from ancient Scandinavia. Let's explore the true origins of this fascinating deity and discover why he's captured imaginations for over 1,000 years. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to command lightning itself, to hold the power of storms in your hands? For the ancient Norse people, one god embodied this awesome force of nature: Thor, the mighty thunderer, protector of both gods and humans alike. In the cold, harsh realms of the Norse cosmos, Thor stands as one of the most beloved and powerful of all the gods. Son of Odin, the All-Father, and Jörð, the Earth Goddess, Thor emerged as the defender of Asgard and Midgard, our earthly realm. With his flowing red hair, mighty beard, and fierce eyes, Thor cuts an imposing figure that has captured imaginations for over 1,000 years. But what truly sets Thor apart is his legendary weapon, Mjolnir, the hammer that can level mountains and summon devastating storms. This remarkable instrument wasn't just any magical tool. Forged by master dwarven craftsmen in the heart of their underground realm, Mjolnir was made from magical metals and imbued with powers beyond mortal comprehension. Only those worthy of its power can lift it, and in Thor's hands, it becomes an unstoppable force of justice. Thor's role in Norse mythology goes far beyond simply being a warrior god. He represents the protector of order against chaos, the defender of civilization against the forces that threaten to destroy it. When thunder rolls across the sky, the ancient Norse people would say that Thor rides his chariot, pulled by two magical goats named Tangrisnir and Tangjosta, whose hooves create lightning as they race through the heavens. Among Thor's greatest adversaries are the giants, particularly the mighty serpent Jörmungandr, the world's serpent. This massive creature circles the entire world, holding its own tail in its mouth. According to prophecy, Thor and Jörmungandr are destined to kill each other during Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. This eternal enmity represents the constant battle between order and chaos, between protective force and destructive power. One of Thor's most famous adventures involves his journey to the court of the giant king Utgarda-Loki. There, Thor faces a series of seemingly impossible challenges. He attempts to lift a cat, which turns out to be the world's serpent in disguise. He wrestles with an old woman who is actually the personification of old age itself. Though he appears to fail these tasks, his true strength is revealed. He nearly lifts the serpent clear of the ocean and puts up an impressive fight against the one force that no being can defeat, time itself. Thor's relationship with his fellow gods reveals much about his character. Though quick to anger, he's fiercely loyal to his allies. His friendship with Loki, the trickster god, leads to many adventures, though their relationship becomes increasingly strained as Loki's mischief turns to malice. Thor's marriage to Sif, whose golden hair was once cut off by Loki, shows his capacity for love and devotion. The god of thunder is not just a warrior, he's also associated with fertility and farming. His storms bring the rain needed for crops to grow, and farmers would invoke his name for good harvests. This connection to agriculture shows Thor's role as a protector of human civilization, not just through martial strength, but through nurturing the very foundations of society. Tales of Thor's exploits often carry deep moral lessons. His adventures teach the values of courage, honor, and the importance of using strength to protect others rather than to dominate them. When Thor loses his hammer to the giant Thrym, he must humble himself and dress as a bride to retrieve it, showing that even the mightiest must sometimes set aside their pride for the greater good. Thor's influence extends far beyond the ancient Norse world. His name lives on in our modern calendar. Thursday literally means Thor's Day. His stories have inspired countless works of art, literature, and entertainment throughout the centuries. From medieval Scandinavian churches to modern comic books and blockbuster movies, Thor continues to capture our imagination. In recent decades, Thor has found new life in popular culture, though often quite different from his mythological origins. While modern interpretations may differ from the ancient tales, they still capture essential aspects of his character, the protector, the warrior who fights for justice, the god who, despite his immense power, shows great care for the mortal world. The enduring appeal of Thor lies in what he represents: the power of nature harnessed for good, the ideal of strength used in service of others, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. In an age of environmental crisis and social upheaval, these themes resonate perhaps more strongly than ever. As we conclude our journey through the legend of Thor, remember that his stories are more than just tales of a powerful god with a magical hammer. They're reflections of human hopes and fears, of our desire for protection in an uncertain world, and of the eternal truth that true strength lies not just in the ability to strike down enemies, but in the wisdom to know when and how to use that power for the benefit of all. Have you ever wondered if love could be so powerful that it could transform a mortal into a goddess? In ancient Greece, They told a tale that proved exactly that, the extraordinary story of Psyche and Cupid, where mortal beauty dared to challenge divine law, and love conquered all obstacles in its path. In a distant Greek kingdom, there lived a princess named Psyche, whose beauty was so breathtaking that people began worshipping her instead of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Mortals abandoned Venus's temples, leaving them covered in dust, while they flocked to catch a glimpse of Psyche's radiant face. Yet despite her divine-like appearance, Psyche felt desperately alone. No mortal man dared to court someone so beautiful they thought she must be a goddess. Venus, consumed by jealousy, devised a cruel plan. She commanded her son Cupid, the mischievous god of love, to make Psyche fall in love with the most hideous creature on earth. But fate had other plans. When Cupid saw Psyche, he was so startled by her beauty that he accidentally pricked himself with his own arrow of love. In that instant, the god of love himself fell hopelessly in love with the mortal princess. Concerned by their daughter's lack of suitors, Psyche's parents consulted an oracle of Apollo. The oracle's response was devastating. Psyche was to be left on a mountain, where a terrible monster would claim her as his bride. With heavy hearts, they followed the oracle's command. But instead of a monster, the gentle west wind carried Psyche to a magnificent palace floating among the clouds. In this magical palace, invisible servants attended to Psyche's every need. And each night, in complete darkness, her mysterious husband would visit her. He made one condition: she must never attempt to see his face. For a time, Psyche lived in perfect happiness, though she longed to know the identity of her loving husband. But happiness rarely stays unchallenged. Psyche's jealous sisters visited and planted seeds of doubt in her mind. They convinced her that her unseen husband must be the prophesied monster, plotting to devour her. One fateful night, consumed by curiosity and fear, Psyche lit a lamp while her husband slept. There she saw not a monster, but the breathtakingly beautiful god of love himself. In her surprise, Psyche's hand trembled, and a drop of hot oil fell on Cupid's shoulder. He awoke, and in his pain and betrayal, flew away, leaving Psyche alone in the now empty palace. The magical servants vanished, and the beautiful home crumbled to dust around her. But Psyche refused to accept defeat. If love could transform a god into a gentle husband, perhaps it could transform a mortal into someone worthy of divine love. Thus began Psyche's impossible quest to win back Cupid's love. Venus, still burning with jealousy, set 4 seemingly impossible tasks for the mortal girl. First, she had to sort a massive pile of mixed grains before sunset. Tiny ants, moved by her dedication, came to her aid. Next, she had to gather golden wool from violent, deadly sheep. A river reed whispered the secret of collecting wool caught in brambles instead. The third task required collecting water from the source of the river Styx, where dragons guarded the treacherous cliffs. Jupiter's eagle himself helped her complete this task, but the final challenge seemed truly impossible. Venus demanded Psyche journey to the underworld itself to bring back a portion of Prosperna's beauty in a box. Guided by a mysterious voice, Psyche navigated the dangers of the underworld. She avoided the temptation to help suffering souls, kept coins in her mouth for Charon the ferryman, and gave treats to Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog. Yet after successfully completing her mission, curiosity once again got the better of her. Psyche opened the box, hoping to take a tiny bit of divine beauty for herself. But the box contained no beauty. Instead, it held the sleep of the dead. As Psyche fell into a death-like slumber, Cupid, who had been watching over her throughout her trials, could no longer stay away. His love for her had only grown as he witnessed her courage and determination. He wiped the deadly sleep from her eyes and pleaded with Jupiter to make their love legitimate. Moved by their devotion, Jupiter granted Psyche immortality. Even Venus, seeing how far a mortal would go for love, finally accepted their union. Psyche became the goddess of the soul, and her marriage to Cupid was celebrated with a grand feast on Mount Olympus. Their daughter was named Volupta's pleasure, symbolizing the union of love and the soul. This timeless tale reminds us that true love requires more than just physical beauty. It demands trust, courage, and perseverance. Psyche's journey from mortal to goddess shows us that love has the power to transform not just our circumstances, but our very being. Her story has inspired countless artists and writers throughout history, from ancient Roman frescoes to Renaissance paintings, and continues to captivate audiences today. In the end, Psyche and Cupid's story teaches us that the greatest obstacles to love often come from our own doubts and fears. Yet when we face these challenges with determination and faith, even the impossible becomes possible. After all, isn't that what love is all about? Believing in something greater than ourselves, even when the gods themselves seem to stand in our way. Have you ever wondered what happens when two ancient Greek gods clash over the mastery of nature itself? Imagine waves as tall as mountains crashing against the shores of Greece, while a goddess stands resolute against their fury. This is the tale of how Athene, goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, proved her divine might against Poseidon, the temperamental ruler of the seas. In the golden age of ancient Greece, when gods walked freely among mortals, the realms of divine power were clearly defined. Poseidon commanded the vast oceans, his trident stirring up storms that could shatter coastlines. Athene, born from Zeus's head fully grown and armed, governed wisdom, strategic warfare, and the practical arts of civilization. Yet sometimes, even the most established boundaries between divine powers were tested. The conflict began when sailors and coastal dwellers increasingly turned to Athene for protection during their maritime ventures. They had grown weary of Poseidon's unpredictable nature, his tendency to wreck ships on a whim, and his storms that devoured entire fleets. These mortals recognized that Athene's gift of wisdom might offer a safer passage across the treacherous seas than Poseidon's volatile favors. Poseidon, his pride wounded by this shift in mortal allegiance, unleashed his fury upon the Mediterranean. Waves rose like liquid mountains, storms darkened skies that had never known such darkness, and the seas churned with unprecedented violence. His message was clear. No other deity, not even Zeus's favorite daughter, could challenge his dominion over the waters. Athene watched from Mount Olympus as coastal cities suffered and trade routes became impassable. Unlike her impulsive uncle, she understood that true power lay not in destruction, but in mastery and control. She knew she must act, not just to protect her mortal followers, but to demonstrate that wisdom could tame even the wildest forces of nature. One stormy morning, Athene descended to Cape Saunian, where one of her most sacred temples stood overlooking Poseidon's domain. The sea god had whipped the waters into a frenzy, creating waves that threatened to devour the very cliffs upon which her temple was built. As lightning split the sky and thunder shook the earth, Athene raised her spear. Instead of meeting force with force, Athene employed her legendary strategic mind. She began by understanding the patterns within Poseidon's chaos, the rhythms hidden in the storm's rage. With each wave that crashed against the cliffs, she learned more about the nature of the sea itself. This was not just a battle of power, but a lesson in the superiority of wisdom over raw strength. Drawing upon her divine knowledge, Athene started to impose order upon chaos. She moved her spear in precise patterns, each gesture calculated to affect the water's movement. Gradually, the massive waves began to respond to her influence. Where Poseidon created turbulence, Athene introduced harmony. The water's surface, which had been a violent maelstrom moments before, slowly transformed into organized patterns. Poseidon, sensing the change in his domain, emerged from the depths in a chariot pulled by magnificent hippocampi. His expression betrayed both anger and disbelief as he watched Athene tame his wild seas. He raised his trident, attempting to reassert his dominion, but found that Athene's calculated influence could not be easily undone. The goddess demonstrated that true mastery comes not from the ability to create chaos, but from the wisdom to understand and guide natural forces. Under her influence, the waves began to dance in rhythmic patterns, creating a display of both power and beauty. Ships that had been tossing helplessly in the storm found themselves guided safely to harbor by these newly organized currents. This display of divine wisdom over brute force drew the attention of the other Olympians. Zeus himself appeared in the storm clouds above, observing the contest between his daughter and his brother. Even he had not expected Athene to demonstrate such masterful control over another god's domain. Poseidon, though his pride was wounded, could not deny the elegance of Athene's solution. She had not sought to strip him of his power over the seas, but had instead shown how wisdom could work in harmony with natural forces. This lesson resonated deeply with the ancient Greeks, who saw in it a reflection of their own struggles to build civilization in harmony with nature's power. The aftermath of this divine demonstration changed how mortals viewed their relationship with the sea. They learned that respect for Poseidon's power, combined with Athene's wisdom, offered the best protection during maritime ventures. Sailors began to pray to both deities, seeking Poseidon's favor for calm waters, while asking Athene for the wisdom to navigate them safely. This story, passed down through generations, teaches us that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to understand and guide. It reminds us that even the most turbulent forces in our lives can be mastered through knowledge, strategy, and patient understanding. Just as Athene proved that wisdom could calm the mightiest waves, we too can face our challenges not with brute force, but with thoughtful determination and strategic thinking. The temples at Cape Saunian still stand today, monuments to both Athene and Poseidon, reminding visitors of this ancient lesson in the triumph of wisdom over chaos. In their weathered columns, we can still feel the echo of that divine contest, where a goddess of wisdom proved that understanding nature's power is greater than merely wielding it. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wield the power of lightning, command the seas, or rule the underworld? For the ancient Greeks, these weren't just flights of fancy. They were the very real powers of their gods and goddesses, beings who controlled every aspect of their world and still captivate our imagination today. Before there were gods, there was chaos. From this primordial void emerged the first divine beings, including Gaia, Mother Earth herself, and Uranos, the sky. Their children, the Titans, ruled the world until a new generation of gods, led by Zeus, rose to challenge them in an epic war that shook the foundations of the cosmos. After their victory, Zeus and his siblings divided the world among themselves. Zeus claimed the heavens and became the king of gods, wielding his mighty thunderbolt to maintain order. His brother Poseidon took dominion over the seas, commanding storms and earthquakes with his legendary trident. The third brother, Hades, was given the underworld, where he ruled over the souls of the departed. But the Olympian pantheon was far more than just these three powerful brothers. Hera, Zeus's wife and queen, became the guardian of marriage and childbirth, though she spent much of her time dealing with her husband's countless affairs. Athene, who sprang fully grown from Zeus's head, embodied wisdom and strategic warfare, becoming the patron goddess of Athens and a champion of heroes. Apollo and Artemis, the divine twins, brought light and darkness to the world. Apollo drove the sun chariot across the sky and presided over music, prophecy, and healing. His sister Artemis, the skilled huntress, protected the wilderness and its creatures while racing through forests with her silver bow. Aphrodite, born from the sea foam, wielded power perhaps greater than any weapon, love itself. Her beauty sparked wars and toppled kingdoms, while her son Eros shot golden arrows that made even the mighty Zeus fall helplessly in love with mortals. Ares, the god of war, reveled in battle and bloodshed, while Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, created wonders in his volcanic forge, including Zeus's thunderbolts and Achilles' famous armor. Hermes, the swift messenger of the gods, guided travelers and souls alike with his winged sandals, while also moonlighting as the patron of merchants and thieves. These gods were far from perfect. They displayed very human flaws: jealousy, pride, anger, and desire. Zeus's numerous affairs drove Hera to fits of vengeful rage. Apollo's pride led him to flay alive a satyr who dared challenge him to a musical contest. Aphrodite's vanity sparked the Trojan War when she claimed to be the most beautiful goddess. The gods frequently meddled in human affairs, sometimes helping, sometimes hindering. They blessed their favorites with extraordinary gifts and cursed their enemies with terrible fates. Athene guided Odysseus home from Troy, while Poseidon tried to destroy him. Apollo granted Cassandra the gift of prophecy, but cursed her so no one would believe her predictions. Their temples dotted the ancient landscape, from the magnificent Parthenon in Athens to the Oracle of Delphi, where Apollo's priestess delivered mysterious prophecies. People offered sacrifices, held festivals, and competed in athletic games to honor these divine beings, believing their favor could mean the difference between prosperity and ruin. The influence of these gods extends far beyond ancient Greece. Their stories have inspired countless works of art, from Renaissance paintings to modern novels and blockbuster movies. Their names grace our planets, chemical elements, and spacecraft. Their symbols and attributes still appear in corporate logos and government seals. But perhaps most importantly, these gods and goddesses represent timeless aspects of human nature and experience. Zeus represents authority and justice, but also the corruption of power. Aphrodite embodies love's ability to create or destroy. Athene shows how wisdom and strength can coexist. Their stories help us understand our own struggles with power, love, destiny, and mortality. The Greek gods remind us that even immortal beings aren't immune to the complexities of existence. They teach us that great power comes with great responsibility and often great temptation. Their tales warn us about the dangers of hubris while celebrating the potential for greatness in both divine and human nature. Today, while we may not worship at their temples or offer them sacrifices, the Greek gods and goddesses continue to reign in our cultural imagination. Their stories still resonate because they reflect universal truths about power, family, love, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. In their strengths and flaws, their triumphs and failures, we see reflections of our own humanity, magnified to divine proportions. These Olympian gods, with their all-too-human personalities and superhuman powers, remain powerful symbols of the forces that shape our lives and our world. Their legacy lives on, reminding us that the stories we tell about divine beings often reveal profound truths about ourselves. What lengths would you go to protect your love and kingdom? In ancient Greece, one remarkable queen's answer to this question became legendary, as she employed wit and wisdom to outmaneuver an army of suitors who threatened everything she held dear. In the grand palace of Ithaca, Queen Penelope faced a crisis that would test both her loyalty and cleverness. Her husband, the legendary King Odysseus, had been absent for nearly 20 years. First, he'd gone to fight in the Trojan War, and then, due to the gods' interference, his journey home became an epic odyssey of its own. While tales of his adventures spread across the Mediterranean, Penelope's own story of resilience unfolded within the walls of their palace. As years passed without word from Odysseus, noble families from across Greece became convinced the king must surely be dead. More than 100 suitors descended upon Ithaca, each hoping to marry Penelope and claim the throne. These men weren't merely persistent, they were parasites, making themselves at home in the palace, feasting daily on the kingdom's resources and depleting the royal wealth that rightfully belonged to Penelope's son, Telemachus. But Penelope, blessed with intelligence that rivaled her husband's legendary cunning, refused to be forced into a marriage she didn't want. Yet she couldn't simply reject the suitors outright. Doing so might provoke them into violence, endangering both her life and her son's claim to the throne. She needed a strategy that would buy her time while maintaining the delicate balance of power. That's when Penelope devised one of the most brilliant deceptions in Greek mythology. She announced to the suitors that she would choose a new husband, but only after she completed weaving a funeral shroud for Odysseus's elderly father, Laertes. This was a perfectly reasonable request. Preparing burial clothes for family members was a traditional duty of Greek noblewomen. The suitors could hardly object to such a pious act without revealing their true, dishonorable intentions. What the suitors didn't know was that Penelope had transformed this simple task into an ingenious trick. Each day, she would sit at her loom in full view of the palace, diligently weaving the elaborate burial shroud. But each night, by the light of torches, she would secretly unravel her day's work. This way, the shroud never neared completion, and Penelope kept her unwanted suitors at bay. For 3 years, this clever deception continued. While the suitors grew increasingly frustrated, none suspected the truth behind the never-ending weaving project. Penelope's hands worked tirelessly, weaving by day, unraveling by night, while her mind remained fixed on her beloved Odysseus, hoping against hope for his return. But as with many secrets in ancient Greece, the truth eventually came to light. One of Penelope's servants, perhaps seeking favor with the suitors, revealed her mistress's nightly unraveling. The suitors were furious at being outwitted by a woman, and their demands for her to choose a husband grew more aggressive. Yet even when her clever plan was discovered, Penelope remained steadfast. She had bought precious time, 3 years of maintaining her independence and protecting her son's inheritance. Her intelligence and determination had proven that she was every bit as resourceful as her famous husband. This tale resonates deeply with themes that remain relevant today. It speaks to the power of intellectual resistance against brute force, the strength found in quiet determination, and the importance of staying true to one's principles even when faced with overwhelming pressure. Penelope's weaving trick demonstrates how creativity and wit can be powerful weapons against those who rely solely on wealth and status. The story also challenges traditional gender roles in ancient Greek society. While the suitors attempted to claim power through aggressive pursuit and intimidation, Penelope maintained control through cunning and peaceful resistance. Her loom became both a symbol of traditional feminine duties and a tool of sophisticated political maneuvering. In Greek art and literature, Penelope's weaving has become a powerful metaphor for loyalty, patience, and clever resistance. Countless ancient vases depict her at her loom, and her story has inspired artists and writers for over 2 millennia. The phrase Penelope's web entered common language, referring to any task that seems never-ending or any clever plan to buy time. What makes Penelope's story particularly compelling is that she didn't need divine intervention or magical powers to overcome her challenges. Unlike many Greek myths where gods and monsters dominate the narrative, Penelope relied entirely on her own intelligence and determination. She proved that sometimes the greatest power lies not in physical strength or divine favor, but in the quiet persistence of human ingenuity. Today, Penelope's tale continues to inspire. Her story reminds us that resistance doesn't always require grand gestures or open confrontation. Sometimes, the most effective strategy is patient, intelligent manipulation of circumstances, turning seemingly powerless positions into sources of strength. In a world that often celebrates immediate action and direct conflict, Penelope's careful, measured approach offers an alternative model of power and resistance that remains remarkably relevant. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more amazing mythology stories. What would happen if you angered one of the most powerful gods in the Greek pantheon? For the mighty Greek army at Troy, this wasn't a hypothetical question. It was a devastating reality that would teach them the price of disrespecting the divine. In the 10th year of the Trojan War, as Greek warriors besieged the mighty walls of Troy, a desperate father approached their camp. Chryses, a priest of Apollo, came bearing precious gifts and a humble request. His daughter, Chryses, had been taken captive by the Greeks and given as a prize to their supreme commander, Agamemnon. Now, this elderly priest sought to ransom her freedom. Chryses wore the sacred wreath of Apollo upon his head, marking him as a servant of the mighty god of sun, prophecy, and healing. He approached with respect, offering generous treasures for his daughter's return. The Greek soldiers, recognizing the wisdom in honoring a priest of Apollo, murmured their approval. But Agamemnon, consumed by pride and greed, had other plans. The king of Mycenae publicly humiliated the elderly priest, scorning his offerings and his prayers. Agamemnon's words cut sharper than any blade. "Old man, let me not find you lingering by our ships, nor coming here again. Your daughter is mine, and she will grow old in my house, far from her homeland, weaving at my loom and sharing my bed." As Chryses trudged away along the shore, his heart heavy with grief and shame, he raised his hands to Apollo, his divine patron. His prayer would set in motion a chain of events that would devastate the Greek army. "Hear me, Lord of the silver bow, protector of cries. If I have ever pleased you with burnt offerings or holy rites, grant my prayer. Let your arrows rain down upon the Greeks and make them pay for my tears." High on Mount Olympus, Apollo heard his priest's desperate plea. The god's wrath kindled like a raging wildfire. Known for both healing and destruction, Apollo could bring either gentle warmth or scorching death. Now he chose the latter. Descending from Olympus, his silver bow gleaming in the darkness, Apollo took aim at the Greek camp. For 9 days, the god's arrows rained death upon the Greeks. But these were no ordinary arrows. Each shaft carried invisible plagues that spread through the army like wildfire. First, the arrows found the camp's dogs and mules, then turned their deadly aim toward the soldiers themselves. Funeral pyres burned day and night, their smoke rising thick and black against the Mediterranean sky. The mighty Greek army, undefeated in battle, now fell before an invisible enemy they couldn't fight with swords or spears. Men who had survived countless battles succumbed to burning fevers and painful deaths. The plague showed no mercy, claiming both common soldiers and noble warriors alike. The beach, once filled with the sounds of military preparations, now echoed with the groans of the dying. On the 10th day, as bodies continued to pile up, a Achilles, greatest of the Greek warriors, called an assembly. He knew this catastrophe was no natural occurrence. It bore the unmistakable mark of divine punishment. The hero demanded answers from Calchas, their most trusted seer, who could interpret the will of the gods. Calchas revealed the truth. Apollo's wrath had been kindled by Agamemnon's treatment of Chryses. The only way to end the plague was to return Chryses to her father, along with proper offerings and sincere apologies to both the priest and the god. But Agamemnon, even in the face of his army's decimation, initially refused to yield. This crisis revealed a crucial lesson about Greek beliefs. The gods were not distant, uninvolved beings, but active participants in human affairs. Disrespect toward their representatives, in this case, Apollo's priest, brought swift and terrible consequences. The Greeks believed that maintaining proper relationships with the gods through respect, sacrifice, and humility was essential for survival. Eventually, faced with the complete destruction of his army, Agamemnon relented. Chryses was returned to her father with gifts and offerings to Apollo. Chryses, showing the mercy his king had lacked, prayed again to Apollo, this time for the plague to end. The god, satisfied that his priest's honor had been restored, lifted his deadly curse from the Greek camp. This story, preserved in the opening books of Homer's Iliad, resonated deeply with ancient Greeks and continues to captivate us today. It speaks to universal themes: the danger of hubris, the importance of respect for the sacred, and the terrible price of pride. It reminds us that even the mightiest can be brought low when they forget their place in the cosmic order. The tale of Apollo's plague arrows has influenced countless works of art and literature throughout history. From Renaissance paintings depicting Apollo with his silver bow, to modern retellings that draw parallels with contemporary epidemics, this myth continues to remind us of the complex relationship between divine power and human responsibility. In the end, this ancient story teaches us that true strength lies not in unbridled pride or absolute power, but in wisdom, respect, and the ability to acknowledge our own limitations. The arrows of Apollo serve as an eternal warning about the consequences of crossing the divine, a lesson written in suffering and sealed with celestial fire. Have you ever wondered why pride comes before a fall? In the ancient wisdom of India, countless stories warn us about the dangers of overconfidence, but perhaps none quite as memorable as this tale from the Panchatantra about a jackal who thought he was invincible. Long ago, in a dense forest where wisdom whispered through ancient trees, there lived a clever jackal named Shandarava. Unlike his fellow jackals who were content with their simple lives, Shandarava believed he was destined for greatness. His keen wit had helped him survive many dangerous situations, and with each success, his pride grew larger than the last. The forest where Shandarava lived was home to many creatures: majestic tigers, wise elephants, fierce lions, and countless other beings who lived in harmony with nature's laws. Each animal knew its place in the grand dance of life, except for our friend Shandarava, who dreamed of ruling over them all. One day, while prowling through his territory, Shandarava discovered an abandoned palace garden. Time had transformed this once royal space into a wild haven, where fruit trees grew untamed and crystal-clear pools reflected the sky. In these pools, Shandarava saw his reflection and became convinced that his destiny was to become king of the forest. His fur, tinted blue from the indigo plants he had rolled in while exploring the garden, gave him an unusual appearance. Looking at his reflection, Shandarava hatched a clever plan. He would use his unique appearance to convince the forest dwellers that he was no ordinary jackal, but a divine being sent by the gods themselves to rule over them. Climbing atop the highest rock in the garden, Shandarava let out a call unlike any the forest had ever heard, a mixture of a jackal's cry and his attempt at a lion's roar. The strange sound echoed through the forest, drawing curious animals from every direction. They gathered around the blue-tinted jackal, wondering what manner of creature had arrived in their midst. With practiced grace, Shandarava addressed the assembled animals. "Dear forest dwellers," he proclaimed, "I have been sent by Lord Indra himself to be your king. Notice my divine blue color, proof of my celestial origin. Under my rule, this forest will know peace and prosperity unlike ever before." The animals, impressed by his unusual appearance and confident manner, began to whisper among themselves. Many were convinced by his grand claims. After all, they had never seen a blue jackal before. Perhaps he truly was a divine messenger. Even the mighty tigers and lions, typically skeptical of such claims, were swayed by Shandarava's commanding presence and eloquent speech. And so began Shandarava's reign as king of the forest. He appointed lions and tigers as his ministers, bears as palace guards, and elephants as his royal carriers. Every day, the animals would bring him the choicest foods and treat him with the utmost respect. Shandarava lived in luxury, forgetting his humble origins as he became more and more convinced of his own magnificence. But fate has a way of humbling those who rise too high on the wings of deception. One evening, as Shandarava sat upon his throne of stones, he heard a familiar sound in the distance, the howling of a pack of jackals. Something stirred deep within him, an primal urge he couldn't resist. Before he could stop himself, Shandarava lifted his head and responded with the natural cry of his species, a long, wavering howl that revealed his true identity to all. The forest fell silent as the truth dawned upon every animal present. The bears, tigers, and lions exchanged knowing looks, their eyes narrowing with anger at having been deceived. The spell was broken. No longer did they see a divine ruler before them, but a common jackal who had dared to rise above his station through trickery. The very animals who had once served him now turned against him, their respect transformed into fury at his deception. Shandarava fled into the night, pursued by the angry creatures he had fooled. His blue color, now fading from the reins, could no longer protect him. He ran until his legs could carry him no further, finally seeking refuge in a forgotten corner of the forest, far from his former kingdom. Alone in his exile, Shandarava learned the harsh wisdom that the Panchatantra teaches us, that true greatness comes not from pretense or pride, but from accepting who we are and living with honesty and humility. His tale reminds us that while cleverness might win temporary success, truth ultimately prevails. This ancient story speaks to us even today, warning against the dangers of excessive pride and the foolishness of pretending to be something we're not. It teaches us that genuine respect cannot be gained through deception, and that our true nature will always reveal itself in the end. In the grand tradition of the Panchatantra, this tale carries layers of wisdom. It shows us how pride can blind us to our limitations, how deception, though initially successful, carries the seeds of its own destruction, and how the universe has a way of restoring natural balance. Remember Shandarava's story when you're tempted to present yourself as something you're not, or when pride begins to cloud your judgment. For in the end, it's better to be an honest jackal than a false king, better to live in truth than rule through lies. Have you ever wondered if trying to avoid your destiny actually leads you straight toward it? In ancient Greece, this paradox wasn't just a philosophical question. It was the heart of countless tragic tales that still resonate with us today. None captures this irony better than the story of Catreus, king of Crete, whose desperate attempt to escape his fate became the very path to fulfilling it. In the sun-drenched palace of Knossos, where the legendary Minotaur once roamed, lived Catreus, the wealthy and powerful king of Crete. As son of Minos, the great lawgiver and grandson of Zeus himself, Catreus seemed blessed by the gods. His kingdom prospered, his children were beautiful, and his name commanded respect throughout the Mediterranean. But in the world of Greek mythology, such fortune often preceded the cruelest twists of fate. One fateful day, Catreus sought the counsel of an oracle, as was common among Greek rulers. The prophecy he received shattered his world. He would meet his death at the hands of one of his own children. In an instant, his blessed life transformed into a nightmare, and the father's heart within him broke at the thought of his own offspring becoming his murderer. Rather than accept this dire prophecy, Catreus decided to fight against fate itself. In his mind, if he could separate himself from his children, the prophecy could never come true. But his solution would set in motion a chain of events that would prove the oracle's words horrifyingly accurate. Catreus had 4 children: Aero, Clymene, Apamosine, and Allthemenes. Each one would play a part in this tragic tale, but it was his son Allthemenes who would ultimately fulfill the prophecy. Upon learning of the oracle's words, Allthemenes, along with his sister Apamosine, voluntarily left Crete for Rhodes, determined to protect their father by putting as much distance between them as possible. Meanwhile, Catreus arranged for his daughter Aero to be sent to distant Argos, where she would later become entangled in another famous tragedy, the curse of the house of Atreus. His other daughter, Clymene, was married off to Nauplius, a renowned navigator. Through these arrangements, Catreus believed he had outsmarted fate itself. His children were scattered across the Greek world, far from Crete and far from any possibility of fulfilling the prophecy. Years passed, and Catreus grew old. The weight of loneliness and separation from his beloved children bore heavily upon him. In his twilight years, he yearned to see his son Allthemenes one last time. Perhaps, he thought, enough time had passed to make the prophecy void. Perhaps the gods would show mercy to an old man seeking reconciliation with his child. So Catreus set sail for Rhodes, his heart full of hope for a reunion with his son. But fate had other plans. When his ship landed on the Rhodian shore at night, local shepherds mistook Catreus and his crew for pirates, a common threat in those waters. They quickly spread the alarm throughout the island. Allthemenes, who had become a respected protector of Rhodes, rushed to defend his adopted home from the supposed pirates. In the darkness and confusion, he hurled his spear with deadly accuracy straight into the heart of a man he couldn't see clearly. Only as he approached the fallen figure did the horrible truth reveal itself. He had killed his own father, exactly as the prophecy had foretold. When Allthemenes realized what he had done, his grief was unbearable. He prayed to the gods to swallow him up, and according to legend, the earth opened and consumed him. Thus ended the tragic tale of Catreus and his son, a story that has echoed through the centuries as a powerful reminder of fate's inexorable power. This myth speaks to a fundamental truth that the ancient Greeks understood well. Destiny often works in mysterious and ironic ways. Every action Catreus took to avoid his fate, sending his children away, living in isolation, and even his final attempt at reconciliation, created the very circumstances that would bring about his prophesied end. The story of Catreus resonates deeply with human nature. How often do our fears of what might happen lead us to actions that create the very outcomes we sought to avoid? The Greeks used these tales to explore profound questions about free will, destiny, and the complex relationship between our choices and their consequences. In modern times, this myth continues to inspire storytellers and artists who recognize in it timeless themes about family, fate, and the often tragic consequences of our attempts to control the future. It reminds us that sometimes the harder we fight against our destiny, the more firmly we cement it in place. The tale of Catreus teaches us that while we cannot escape our fate, perhaps wisdom lies not in fighting against it, but in facing it with courage and understanding. In the end, it wasn't the prophecy that created the tragedy, it was the fear of it. This ancient story continues to serve as a powerful meditation on destiny, free will, and the complex bonds between parents and children, proving that even after thousands of years, Greek mythology remains a mirror in which we can see our own struggles and dilemmas reflected. In the unfathomable depths of cosmic time, when the universe was young and gods walked among mortals, a profound truth emerged: the power of sacred vows to transform consciousness and bridge the gap between the human and divine. These weren't mere promises, but mystical keys that could unlock the gates of spiritual liberation. The Puranas tell us that in the beginning, when the great Lord Brahma first created the universe, he noticed a fundamental challenge. The cosmic forces were in constant flux, causing chaos in the minds and hearts of living beings. To establish order and provide a path to higher consciousness, Brahma initiated the first sacred vow, a commitment to maintain universal dharma for an entire cosmic day. As the story goes, the celestial sage Narada once asked Lord Brahma about the origin of these sacred vows. Brahma revealed how the first vows emerged from the primordial ocean of consciousness itself. When the great churning of the cosmic ocean took place, along with divine nectar and celestial treasures, emerged the essence of spiritual disciplines, the sacred vows. The power of these vows first manifested when the great goddess Parvati undertook severe austerities to win Lord Shiva's heart. For thousands of years, she observed the most rigorous vows, standing on one leg, surviving only on fallen leaves, and finally sustaining herself on air alone. Her unwavering dedication not only earned Shiva's grace, but established the transformative potential of sacred vows for all humanity. The Puranas speak of how these divine practices gradually descended to the human realm. The great sage Vasishtha received the knowledge of vows through deep meditation and shared them with humanity. He taught that every sacred vow carries within it a seed of divine power, waiting to blossom through sincere practice. Among the most powerful vows revealed was the Ekadashi Vrata, born from an extraordinary cosmic event. When the demon Mura threatened the balance of the universe, Lord Vishnu entered into yogic sleep. From his divine body emerged a maiden of incredible power, Ekadashi. She vanquished the demon and became personified as the sacred vow of fasting on the 11th day of every lunar fortnight. The Puranas explain how different vows emerged to address various human needs and spiritual aspirations. The Savitri Vrata arose when the devoted wife Savitri used the power of her sacred vow to reclaim her husband's life from Yama, the Lord of Death. Her unwavering dedication established this vow as a powerful practice for protecting marital bonds and family harmony. Each sacred vow carries specific cosmic energies. The Puranas describe how the Solar Somvar Vrata, dedicated to Lord Shiva, aligns the practitioner with lunar energies and the divine consciousness of Shiva himself. The Santoshi Mata Vrata emerged in recent cosmic history when the goddess manifested to bring contentment and fulfillment to her devotees. These sacred vows aren't just religious observances, they're cosmic technologies for transformation. The Puranas explain how each vow creates specific vibrations in the universe, establishing a direct connection between the practitioner and the divine forces they invoke. When observed with pure intention and understanding, These vows have the power to override karmic patterns and accelerate spiritual evolution. The great sage Vyasa revealed that sacred vows work through three principal mechanisms. First, they create spiritual discipline and purify consciousness. Second, they establish a rhythmic connection with cosmic forces. Third, they invoke the grace of specific deities who oversee different aspects of existence. Perhaps the most profound teaching about sacred vows comes from the story of King Dhruva. As a child, when denied his rightful place on his father's lap, he undertook severe vows under sage Narada's guidance. His dedication was so intense that it moved Lord Vishnu himself to appear before him. Dhruva's transformation from a hurt child to an enlightened soul demonstrates the extraordinary potential of sacred vows. The Puranas emphasize that the true power of vows lies not in their external observance, but in their internal transformation. Each vow is a sacred contract with the cosmic forces, a promise to align one's life with higher principles. When observed with devotion, understanding, and consistency, these vows gradually unveil the practitioner's divine nature. In our modern age, these ancient vows continue to serve as bridges between the mundane and the divine. They remind us that spiritual evolution isn't just about philosophical understanding, but about practical transformation through dedicated practice. Every sincere observation of a sacred vow creates ripples in the cosmic ocean of consciousness, contributing to the universal harmony and individual enlightenment. The Puranas conclude that sacred vows are eternal principles, existing beyond time and space. They are divine gifts, cosmic tools that enable ordinary beings to achieve extraordinary spiritual heights. In the great cosmic dance of creation, these vows serve as the subtle threads that weave together human aspiration and divine grace, leading practitioners toward the ultimate goal of self-realization. Imagine a river so powerful that it flows through three worlds: heaven, earth, and the netherworld. A river whose waters carry not just life, but the very essence of divine grace. This is the story of Ganga, the celestial river that descended from the heavens through Lord Shiva's matted locks to bless our earthly realm. In the celestial realm of Devaloka, Ganga once flowed as a magnificent river of cosmic consciousness, her waters shimmering with divine light. But the story of her earthly descent begins with a king named Sagara and his 60,000 sons. These princes, searching for their father's sacrificial horse, accused an innocent sage of theft. In their arrogance, they disturbed his meditation, and with a single glance, the sage reduced them to ashes. Their souls, trapped between worlds, needed the purifying touch of Ganga's waters for liberation. For generations, the descendants of Sagara tried to find a way to bring Ganga to earth. It was King Bhajaratha, after several generations, who finally undertook the tremendous task of bringing the celestial river to the mortal realm. Bhajaratha performed severe penances for over 1,000 years. Standing on one leg, surviving only on air, his determination finally moved Lord Brahma, the creator. Brahma agreed to send Ganga down to earth, but there was a grave concern. The force of Ganga's descent would be so tremendous that it would destroy the earth itself. Only one being could help Lord Shiva, the great destroyer and protector. Bhajaratha then directed his prayers to Lord Shiva, performing even more intense austerities. Pleased with his devotion, Shiva agreed to catch Ganga in his matted locks. But Ganga, proud of her divine status, thought to sweep Shiva away with her mighty force. She descended from the heavens like a thundering cascade of cosmic power. Little did she know that Lord Shiva, the master of all elements, could easily contain her force. As she fell, Shiva captured her within his matted hair, where she wandered for countless years, humbled by his divine power. This taught Ganga her first lesson in humility. The once proud river learned that even divine beings must approach the earth with grace and measured force. Bhagiratha prayed again, this time for Shiva to release Ganga. Moved by the king's unwavering devotion, Shiva allowed the river to flow from his locks in smaller, gentler streams. This is why Ganga is also known as Bhagirathi, named after the king whose determination brought her to earth. As Ganga descended, she split into 7 streams. The main stream followed Bhagiratha as he led the way on his chariot to the place where his ancestors' ashes lay. Along her course, Ganga purified everything she touched. Sacred cities sprang up on her banks, and her waters brought life to barren lands. When she finally reached the ashes of Sagara's sons, her divine waters liberated their souls, granting them moksha, or spiritual liberation. This exemplifies one of the deepest truths in Hindu philosophy, that divine grace, combined with sincere effort and devotion, can overcome even the most formidable obstacles. Today, the Ganges River continues to flow as a living embodiment of divine grace. Her waters are considered sacred, capable of washing away sins and purifying both body and soul. Millions of devotees take holy dips in her waters, believing in their transformative power. The river's journey from heaven to earth through Shiva's locks symbolizes the descent of divine wisdom into human consciousness. The story of Ganga teaches us profound lessons about pride, perseverance, and the power of devotion. Through Bhagiratha's determination, we learn that no goal is impossible when pursued with unwavering faith. Through Ganga's humbling by Shiva, we understand that even the mightiest must learn humility. And through the river's final act of liberation, we see how divine grace works in harmony with human effort to achieve the impossible. This sacred river reminds us that divinity flows through every aspect of creation, connecting heaven and earth, the spiritual and the material. Just as Ganga's waters flow eternally, the stream of divine consciousness continues to bless and purify all who approach with sincere hearts. The next time you hear the gentle flow of water or witness a mighty river in its course, remember the celestial Ganga, who chose to descend to our world, caught and tempered by Shiva's grace, brought to earth by a devotee's determination, forever flowing as a bridge between the divine and human realms. What if the entire universe was actually dancing, not just metaphorically, but literally pulsing with the rhythm of creation and destruction? In Hindu mythology, this cosmic dance is performed by one of the most enigmatic deities, Lord Shiva, the destroyer of ignorance and the harbinger of transformation. Shiva exists beyond time itself, dwelling in the snow-capped peaks of Mount Kailash in the Himalayas. He is part of the divine trinity, along with Brahma the creator and Vishnu the preserver. While Brahma creates and Vishnu maintains, Shiva dissolves not just the physical universe, but also the ego, ignorance, and attachments that bind human consciousness. Picture Shiva in his most iconic form as Nataraja, the cosmic dancer. His dance, called the Tandava, represents the 5 activities of the cosmos: creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, and revelation. In his upper right hand, he holds the Damaru, a drum that beats the rhythm of creation. His upper left hand carries Agni, the fire of destruction. His lower right hand shows the Abhaya Mudra, bestowing protection, while his lower left hand points to his raised foot, symbolizing liberation. The circle of fire surrounding him represents the cosmic cycle of birth and death. Under his right foot lies the demon of ignorance, crushed by divine wisdom. This sacred image, found in temples and museums worldwide, has even been displayed at CERN, where scientists study the dance of subatomic particles, acknowledging the profound connection between ancient wisdom and modern physics. But Shiva is not just the cosmic dancer. He is also the perfect yogi, seated in deep meditation atop Mount Kailash. His body smeared with ash, wearing a tiger skin, with the crescent moon adorning his matted locks, he represents the ultimate renunciate. The ash reminds us that all material existence eventually returns to its basic elements. The snake around his neck symbolizes the Kundalini energy that yogis seek to awaken. Perhaps most striking is Shiva's third eye, centered on his forehead. This is not a physical eye, but the eye of wisdom that sees beyond duality. When opened, it can reduce desires and delusions to ashes, just as it once burned Karma, the god of desire, who dared to disturb Shiva's meditation. Yet Shiva is also a loving family man, sharing his life with his consort Parvati, the daughter of the mountains. Their love story is legendary. How Parvati performed intense penance to win Shiva's attention, how she reminded him that while detachment is important, divine love is equally sacred. Their sons, Ganesha and Kartikya, complete this divine family, showing that spiritual life need not mean abandoning worldly responsibilities. Shiva's throat is blue, earning him the name Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. This comes from the story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean. When deadly poison emerged threatening all existence, Shiva drank it to save the universe. Instead of swallowing it, he held it in his throat, turning it blue. This teaches us that even poison can become medicine in the hands of the wise. Devotees worship Shiva through the lingam, a symbolic form representing the formless nature of the divine. The lingam, often set in a circular base called the yoni, represents the union of consciousness and energy, the divine masculine and feminine principles that pervade all creation. Shiva teaches us profound truths through his very appearance. His matted locks show that external beauty is meaningless. The Ganges flowing from his hair reminds us to let divine grace flow through us to serve others. The serpents around his body represent mastery over fear and desire. Even his vehicle, the bull Nandi, symbolizes Dharma, the eternal law that supports the universe. The mantra Om Namah Shivaya, I bow to Shiva, is chanted by millions daily. Each syllable represents an element: earth, water, fire, air, and space, plus the individual soul seeking union with cosmic consciousness. This simple yet powerful mantra is said to contain all wisdom. Shiva's message for our modern world is clear. Transformation requires letting go. Just as he burns away impurities, we must be willing to release what no longer serves our growth. His meditation teaches us that peace comes from within, not from external achievements or possessions. His family life shows that we can be spiritual while fulfilling our worldly duties. In essence, Shiva represents the supreme paradox, the destroyer who is supremely compassionate, the ascetic who is the perfect lover, the fierce deity who is the most easily pleased. He reminds us that life's opposing forces, creation and destruction, love and detachment, material and spiritual, are not contradictions, but complementary aspects of the same divine dance. As we face personal and global transformations today, Shiva's eternal dance continues, inviting us to find rhythm in chaos, wisdom in destruction, and ultimately, liberation in letting go. For in Shiva's dance lies the secret of the universe. Eternal change is the only constant, and in accepting this truth lies our freedom.
Imagine a world where even gods must fight for recognition. This is the story of Manasa, the snake goddess who challenged the very foundations of divine hierarchy. In the celestial realms of Hindu mythology, Where deities reigned supreme and cosmic battles shaped the universe, there existed a goddess unlike any other. Manasa, the serpent deity, born from the mind of the great sage Kashyapa, was destined for an extraordinary journey. Manasa's birth was no ordinary event. She emerged from Kashyapa's meditation, a living embodiment of his thoughts on snake lore and poison. Her very essence was intertwined with these potent forces, making her a unique and formidable presence in the pantheon of gods. But being extraordinary didn't guarantee acceptance. Manasa found herself in a precarious position, caught between the world of gods and mortals. The established deities, particularly Shiva, the destroyer, viewed her with suspicion. They questioned her right to be worshipped, her place among them. Undeterred, Manasa embarked on a quest for recognition. She knew her powers were real, her domain vital. Snakes, after all, were both feared and revered in the mortal world. They symbolized danger and protection, death and renewal. Manasa understood that her role as their goddess was crucial for maintaining cosmic balance. Her journey took her to the mortal realm, where she sought devotees among the people. She appeared to farmers, healers, and common folk, demonstrating her power over snakes and her ability to cure their venomous bites. Slowly, whispers of a new goddess began to spread. But not everyone was willing to accept Manasa. In the kingdom of Champaka lived a wealthy merchant named Chand Sadagar. He was a devout worshipper of Shiva and refused to acknowledge Manasa's divinity. This rejection became the central conflict in Manasa's story, a test of her resolve and divine status. Manasa approached Chand, requesting his worship. She said, "O merchant, I am Manasa, goddess of snakes. Offer me your devotion, and I shall protect you and your kin from the dangers of serpents." But Chand, proud and stubborn, replied, "I bow only to Lord Shiva. I need no protection from a self-proclaimed goddess." This rejection ignited a battle of wills that would span years. Manasa, determined to prove her worth, unleashed her powers. She sent snakes to destroy Chand's gardens, sink his ships, and threaten his family. With each calamity, she offered him a chance to relent, to accept her divinity. But Chand remained steadfast. He cried out to Shiva, "O Mahadeva, protect me from this pretender." And for a time, Shiva's blessings shielded him from Manasa's wrath. This divine tug-of-war illustrated a profound truth in Hindu philosophy: the interconnectedness of all deities and the complex nature of devotion. As the conflict escalated, it caught the attention of other gods. They watched with interest, some sympathizing with Manasa's struggle, others wary of upsetting the established order. This cosmic drama reflected the earthly struggles of acceptance and change, a theme that resonates even in our modern world. Manasa's perseverance began to pay off. More and more mortals turned to her for protection, offering prayers and rituals in her name. Her power grew with each new devotee, challenging the notion that divinity was a fixed, unchanging state. The tide turned when Chand's son, Lakhinder, fell victim to a deadly snakebite on his wedding night. In her grief, Behula, Lakhindar's wife, turned to Manasa for help. She undertook a perilous journey, floating down the river with her husband's lifeless body, facing numerous trials. Behula's unwavering faith touched Manasa deeply. In this moment, the goddess realized that true divinity lay not just in power, but in compassion and the ability to inspire devotion. She restored Lakhinder to life, proving her divine capabilities once and for all. This act finally broke Chand's resistance. He saw the truth of Manasa's godhood and the folly of his stubborn denial. In a moment of humility, he offered her worship, but with a twist that spoke to his enduring pride. He turned his back and offered flowers with his left hand, a less respectful form of worship. Manasa accepted this imperfect devotion, understanding that change comes slowly and that even flawed recognition is a step towards acceptance. This teaches us a valuable lesson about tolerance and the gradual nature of spiritual growth. With Chand's acknowledgement, Manasa's position in the divine hierarchy was secured. She became known as Manasa Devi, a goddess of snakes, fertility, and protection. Her story spread throughout the land, inspiring devotion and respect. The tale of Manasa's struggle carries deep significance in Hindu thought. It illustrates the fluid nature of the divine pantheon, showing that new deities can emerge and gain acceptance. This reflects the adaptable, inclusive nature of Hinduism itself. Moreover, Manasa's journey embodies the concept of tapasya, or spiritual austerity. Through her persistent efforts and unwavering belief in her own divinity, she achieved her goal. This teaches us the power of determination and faith in achieving our life's purpose. The conflict between Manasa and Chand also highlights the tension between tradition and change, a theme relevant to all societies. It shows how established beliefs can be challenged and expanded, making room for new ideas and diverse perspectives. In the end, Manasa's story is one of empowerment. It tells us that even in the face of rejection and adversity, one can rise to claim their rightful place. It encourages us to persist in our goals, to believe in our inherent worth, and to seek recognition for our true selves. As we reflect on this ancient tale, we can draw parallels to our modern struggles for acceptance and recognition. Like Manasa, we too may face skepticism and rejection in our pursuits. But her story reminds us that with perseverance, compassion, and unwavering faith in ourselves, we can overcome any obstacle. The story of Manasa, the snake goddess, continues to slither through the consciousness of millions, reminding us of the power of belief, the importance of acceptance, and the ever-evolving nature of spirituality. In her journey from obscurity to divinity, we find a timeless tale of triumph that still holds meaning in our rapidly changing world.
What if a single touch could transform stone into life? In the ancient traditions of Hindu mythology, such miraculous transformations weren't just possible. They were profound demonstrations of divine grace and redemption. Today, we explore one such extraordinary tale. The story of Ahalya, whose journey from cursed stone to liberated soul reveals timeless truths about forgiveness, divine grace, and spiritual transformation. In the sacred land of ancient India lived Ahalya, whose name means the flawless one. Created by Brahma himself, she possessed unparalleled beauty and wisdom. The great sage Gautama chose her as his wife, and together they lived a life of devotion and spiritual practice in their peaceful ashram. But even the most serene gardens can harbor shadows. Indra, the king of the celestial realm, became enchanted by Ahalya's beauty. Known for his mischievous nature, he devised a plan that would forever alter the course of Ahalya's life. One morning, while Gautama was away performing his daily rituals, Indra assumed the sage's exact form and approached Ahalya. Here, ancient texts differ in their telling. Some say Ahalya knew it was Indra, but succumbed to temptation. Others maintain she was truly deceived by his perfect disguise. Regardless, when Gautama returned to find what had transpired, his anger manifested in a powerful curse. With words that shook the very foundations of the ashram, he condemned Ahalya to become as unfeeling as the heart he believed she had shown, transforming her into stone. Yet within this curse lay the seeds of eventual redemption. Gautama proclaimed that Ahalya would remain in this state until Lord Rama, an incarnation of Vishnu himself, would one day touch her with his sacred feet. Thus began Ahalya's long wait, existing as a stone in the very ashram where she had once lived as the sage's honored wife. Centuries passed. The stone that was Ahalya remained, weathering countless seasons, silent witness to the passage of time. Then came the day when young Prince Rama, accompanied by his brother Lakshmana and the sage Vishwamitra, approached the ancient ashram during their forest journey. Vishwamitra, knowing the profound significance of this moment, guided Rama toward the stone. The prince's feet, covered in the dust of his righteous journey, touched the stone that had once been Ahalia. In that miraculous instant, the curse began to break. The stone's surface cracked and crumbled, revealing not cold rock, but warm flesh. Ahalia emerged, radiant with an inner light born of centuries of reflection and penance. Falling at Rama's feet, Ahalia expressed her gratitude through tears of joy. Her first words were not of her suffering or her long wait, but of profound thankfulness for the divine grace that had liberated her. This moment transcended mere physical transformation. It represented the ultimate power of divine compassion to heal and restore. The significance of this tale reaches far beyond its supernatural elements. Ahalia's story speaks to the universal human experiences of transgression, consequence, and redemption. The stone curse represents not just divine punishment, but the way our own actions can harden us, making us insensitive to the world around us. Rama's role in this story illuminates the Hindu concept of divine grace. His touch didn't just break a curse, it exemplified how divine intervention can transform our darkest moments into opportunities for spiritual awakening. The dust of his feet, considered sacred in Hindu tradition, symbolizes the humility required for true transformation. Gautama's eventual forgiveness of Ahalia teaches us about the power of redemption. After her liberation, ancient texts tell us that Ahalia was reunited with her husband, their reconciliation demonstrating that even the deepest wounds can heal through sincere repentance and divine grace. This story also challenges us to examine our own hearts. How often do we become like stone, unfeeling, unresponsive to the divine presence in our lives? Ahalia's liberation reminds us that no matter how hardened we become, the touch of divine grace can restore our true nature. In Hindu philosophy, this tale illustrates the concept of karma and grace working in harmony. While Ahalia's actions brought immediate consequences, her story didn't end with punishment. Through divine intervention, what seemed like an eternal curse became a pathway to profound spiritual transformation. Today, the story of Ahalia continues to resonate across time, reminding us that no soul is beyond redemption, no curse beyond breaking when touched by divine grace. Her transformation from stone to living being mirrors our own potential journey from spiritual unconsciousness to awakened awareness. As we conclude this ancient tale, we're reminded that like Ahalia, each of us has the potential for transformation. Perhaps we too are waiting for that divine touch that will awaken us from our own stone-like existence, returning us to our true, radiant nature. In the end, Ahalia's story is not just about a woman turned to stone. It's about the eternal possibility of resurrection through divine grace and the power of forgiveness to restore what was thought forever lost. Have you ever wondered who invented the first game of chance? The answer lies not in the smoke-filled backrooms of medieval taverns, but in the gleaming halls of Mount Olympus itself, where Titch, the goddess of fortune, first introduced mortals to the thrilling world of gambling. In ancient Greece, where gods walked among mortals and fate intertwined with daily life, Titch stood as a unique figure among the pantheon. Neither wholly benevolent nor malicious, she embodied the unpredictable nature of fortune itself. With her cornucopia in one hand and a ship's rudder in the other, she guided the destinies of both gods and mortals through the uncertain waters of chance. The story begins in the bustling city-state of Corinth, where Titch was particularly revered. According to ancient tales, she observed how humans constantly sought ways to glimpse their futures and understand the will of the gods. Some consulted oracles, others read omens in bird flights, but Titch saw an opportunity to teach mortals a profound lesson about the nature of fate itself. One moonlit night, she appeared to a group of merchants in the Agora of Corinth. These weren't ordinary traders. They were known for their clever minds and endless debates about destiny and free will. Titch approached them in the form of a mysterious woman, her face partially concealed by a shimmering veil, carrying what appeared to be simple pieces of bone. "You seek to understand the ways of fate," she told them, her voice carrying the weight of divine authority. "Yet you fail to grasp its true nature. Let me show you how fortune truly works." With these words, she revealed the first dice ever created, carved from the knucklebones of a celestial deer that roamed the slopes of Mount Olympus. Titch taught the merchants the first games of chance, showing how the dice could fall in different ways, each representing a different outcome. She explained that just as in life, players could make choices, but the final result always contained an element of uncertainty. The merchants were captivated, spending the entire night learning various games under her guidance. As word spread throughout Greece, more and more people began crafting their own dice and developing new games. Titch's invention quickly became more than mere entertainment. It evolved into a mirror of life itself. The Greeks saw in these games a perfect metaphor for human existence, a delicate balance between skill and chance, choice and fate. But Titch's lesson didn't stop with dice. She gradually introduced other games of chance to the mortals. She taught them to draw lots, inspired the creation of early playing cards, and even suggested the first betting games. Each new game carried its own symbolic meaning, teaching different aspects about fortune's fickle nature. The goddesses' games spread from Greece across the ancient world. In Sparta, soldiers used them to teach strategic thinking. In Athens, philosophers incorporated them into discussions about free will and determinism. Even the oracles of Delphi sometimes used Titch's dice to provide answers to seekers, believing they carried divine wisdom. However, Titch's gifts came with a warning. She appeared in dreams to those who became too obsessed with gambling, reminding them that the games were meant to teach wisdom, not feed greed. She cautioned that while chance could bring great fortune, it could just as easily take it away. The wise, she counseled, would understand that life, like her games, required both prudent judgment and acceptance of uncertainty. The influence of Titch's games extended far beyond ancient Greece. The Romans later adopted her as Fortuna, spreading gambling games throughout their vast empire. From the dice games of Roman legionaries to the elaborate gambling houses of Pompeii, her influence shaped how ancient peoples understood and interacted with chance. Today, whenever someone rolls dice, shuffles cards, or places a bet, they're participating in an activity whose divine origins trace back to Titch's ancient lesson. Modern casinos, with their promises of fortune and risk, still echo the fundamental truths she sought to teach. That life is a mixture of skill and chance, that fortune favors the bold but humbles the reckless. The story of Titch and her games reminds us that gambling has always been more than mere entertainment. It represents humanity's eternal dance with chance and fate, our desperate desire to understand the unknowable, and our need to find meaning in the random turns of fortune's wheel. In museums around the world, ancient Greek dice and gaming pieces still survive, silent testimonies to Titch's enduring influence. These artifacts, some over 2,000 years old, connect us directly to those first nights in Corinth, when a goddess taught mortals to embrace the uncertainty of existence through play. So the next time you see dice being rolled or cards being dealt, remember Titch, the divine inventor of games of chance. Remember that in teaching humans to gamble, she wasn't just creating entertainment. She was offering a profound lesson about life itself, that while we can't control every outcome, we can learn to face uncertainty with wisdom, grace, and understanding. Can we truly trust those who suddenly change their ways? This ancient tale from the Panchatantra, India's treasure trove of wisdom, explores this very question through a story that has enlightened minds for over 2,000 years. In a serene pond, surrounded by lush vegetation, lived a community of frogs. They spent their days swimming in the crystal-clear waters, catching insects, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. Their peaceful existence, however, was about to face an unexpected challenge. Near this pond lived a black cobra named Karalavaktra, renowned for his fearsome hunting skills. Age had begun to slow him down, making it increasingly difficult to catch his prey. Day after day, his attempts to catch the swift frogs ended in failure, leaving him hungry and frustrated. As hunger gnawed at him, he realized he needed a new strategy, one that would require cunning rather than speed. One morning, Karalavaktra positioned himself by the pond's edge, appearing unusually calm and meditative. Instead of his usual aggressive posture, he sat perfectly still, as if lost in deep contemplation. The frogs, who had always fled at the mere sight of him, watched from a safe distance, puzzled by this strange behavior. After several hours of observation, one young frog gathered enough courage to call out, "Oh, mighty serpent, why do you not hunt today as you usually do?" The cobra's response was carefully crafted to deceive. "My dear friend," he replied, his voice gentle and sorrowful, "a wise sage recently taught me the futility of violence and the power of peace. I have taken a sacred vow to never harm another creature again." The young frog, impressed by this apparent transformation, shared the news with others. Soon, the entire frog community began discussing the snake's spiritual awakening. The elder frogs, however, remained skeptical. "Remember," one ancient frog warned, "a creature's nature does not change overnight. Wisdom lies in maintaining a safe distance." But the younger frogs were captivated by Karalavaktra's newfound spirituality. Each day, they ventured closer to the snake, listening to his philosophical discourses on peace and harmony. The cobra spoke of karma, dharma, and the interconnectedness of all beings. His words were honey-sweet, masking his true intentions. As days passed, the frogs grew increasingly comfortable around their former predator. They even began using his broad hood as a platform to sit and chat, treating him like a wise guru. Karalavaktra maintained his peaceful facade, all while plotting his real strategy. One evening, as several frogs sat upon his hood, engaged in conversation, Karalavaktra casually mentioned that he was feeling weak from his fasting. "Perhaps," he suggested innocently, "one of you could sacrifice yourself to sustain me. After all, is it not the highest dharma to help a reformed being maintain their spiritual path?" The younger frogs, completely deceived by weeks of masterful manipulation, actually considered his request. Before the elder frogs could intervene, one young frog volunteered, seeing it as an honor to help their spiritual friend. In an instant, Karalavaktra's true nature revealed itself. The volunteer disappeared into his mouth, leaving the other frogs frozen in horror. Day by day, using the same tactic of requesting sacrifices, the snake began depleting the frog population. The remaining frogs finally realized their terrible mistake, but for many, this wisdom came too late. Those who survived fled to distant ponds, carrying with them a costly lesson about trust and discernment. This Panchatantra tale carries timeless wisdom about the nature of deception and the importance of critical thinking. It teaches us that words alone cannot be trusted. Actions and consistent behavior over time reveal true character. The story reminds us that wisdom often comes from elders who have seen the patterns of life repeat themselves through generations. Moreover, the tale speaks to the danger of naive trust and the importance of maintaining healthy skepticism, even when faced with apparently transformed characters. Just as the young frogs were deceived by sweet words and false spirituality, we too can fall prey to those who use noble concepts to mask ignoble intentions. The story also illuminates the concept of svabhava, or inherent nature, suggesting that fundamental character traits often remain unchanged despite outward appearances. This teaching encourages us to observe patterns of behavior rather than rely solely on words or temporary displays of virtue. In our modern world, where deception often wears sophisticated masks, this ancient tale remains remarkably relevant. It reminds us that wisdom requires us to balance openness with discernment, trust with careful observation, and hope for change with realistic understanding of nature. As we reflect on this tale, we might ask ourselves, how often do we ignore warning signs in our eagerness to believe what we wish to be true? What price do we pay for abandoning discernment in favor of blind trust? The answers to these questions might save us from becoming prey to modern-day Karalavactras, who, like the cunning cobra, disguise their true intentions behind peaceful facades. Picture this, a vast battlefield strewn with fallen warriors, where 100 brothers once stood united in their quest for power. Now, as the sun sets on the 18th day of the Great War, not one remains. This is the story of how the mighty Kauravas met their end, a tale of pride, destiny, and divine justice. The 100 Kaurava brothers, led by the eldest, Duryodhana, had chosen the path of Adharma, unrighteousness. Despite numerous attempts at peace by Krishna and the Pandavas, their pride and greed led them to wage the greatest war ever fought. The consequences of their choices would unfold in the most devastating ways on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In the early days of the war, the lesser-known Kaurava brothers fell rapidly. Many met their end facing Bhima, who had taken a terrible vow to avenge the humiliation of Draupadi. Each day, as the battle raged, Bhima would seek out the Kaurava brothers, his mace becoming an instrument of karma. The younger Kauravas, despite their skills, could not withstand his fury. Some fell to Arjuna's arrows, others to Nakula and Sahadva's swordsmanship. But it was the deaths of the major Kauravas that would shake the very foundations of their army. Vikarna, the only brother who had spoken against Draupadi's disrobing, met an honorable end. Even Bhima shed tears as he struck down this righteous soul, acknowledging that among the 100, Vikarna alone had walked the path of Dharma. Dushasana's death marked a turning point in the war. Bhima fulfilled his vow by defeating him in single combat. The death of this proud warrior, who had once dragged Draupadi by her hair, demonstrated how karma returns all actions in full measure. The battlefield fell silent as warriors on both sides witnessed the price of dishonoring the divine feminine. As the war progressed, the remaining brothers began to fall one by one. Some died fighting in formation, protecting each other until the very end. Others, consumed by fear and regret, met their fate while fleeing. Each death reflected their life choices. Those who fought honorably died warriors' deaths, while those who had lived by deceit met in glorious ends. The final days saw the fall of the mightiest Kauravas. Duryodhana, the eldest and proudest, remained for last. Having lost all his brothers, he faced the bitter truth that his actions had led to their destruction. In his final battle with Bhima, their legendary mace fight, we see the culmination of a lifetime of rivalry. Despite Krishna's warnings and numerous opportunities for peace, Duryodhana's pride had remained unshaken until this moment. The duel between Bhima and Duryodhana represents more than just a physical battle. It embodies the eternal struggle between Dharma and Adharma, righteousness and unrighteousness. Duryodhana, skilled in mace warfare and blessed with near-invulnerable skin, fought with all his remaining strength. But karma had written a different destiny. When Bhima struck the final blow, breaking Duryodhana's thighs, it was not just a physical victory. It was the triumph of Dharma over Adharma, of divine justice over mortal pride. Duryodhana lay dying, his 100 brothers already gone, their vast army destroyed. In his final moments, he experienced a profound realization about the futility of pride and the power of divine will. The fall of the Kauravas teaches us eternal truths about existence. First, that actions have consequences that cannot be escaped. The Kauravas' choice to pursue power through Adharma sealed their fate. Second, that pride blinds us to wisdom. Despite having Krishna himself advocate for peace, they chose war. Third, that Dharma, though it may seem to suffer temporarily, ultimately prevails. Each brother's end reflected their character. Those who showed traces of Dharma died honorably in battle. Those who had embraced Adharma completely met darker fates. The 100 Kaurava brothers, born of a single boon, united in their opposition to the Pandavas, fell one by one until none remained. Their story serves as an eternal reminder that the path of Adharma, though it may seem powerful and attractive, leads to destruction. In the end, the fall of the Kauravas demonstrates a fundamental principle of Hindu philosophy, that the universe maintains balance through karma. No action, good or bad, goes unrewarded or unpunished. The divine works through time and circumstances to ensure that Dharma prevails, even if the path to that victory is paved with sacrifice and suffering. Their tale, though thousands of years old, remains relevant today. It warns us about the dangers of pride, the importance of choosing Dharma over personal gain, and the inevitable justice of karma. As we reflect on their fate, we're reminded that every choice we make shapes not just our destiny, but the very fabric of Dharma itself. Have you ever wondered what makes the perfect human being? This very question once sparked an extraordinary contest between the king and queen of Mount Olympus themselves, Zeus and Hera. Their divine competition would shape the very nature of mortality itself, and its lessons echo through the ages to this very day. In the golden age of ancient Greece, when gods walked freely among mortals, Zeus and Hera ruled the pantheon from their thrones atop Mount Olympus. Their marriage was famous for its stormy nature, filled with jealousy, rivalry, and constant attempts to outdo one another. While Zeus was known for his power and authority, Hera was celebrated for her wisdom and protection of marriage. Both believed they understood mortals better than the other. One day, during a particularly heated argument about their respective abilities, Zeus boasted that he could create the perfect mortal being. Hera, tired of her husband's endless pride, challenged him to prove it. Thus began a contest that would captivate both the divine and mortal realms. Each deity would create their version of the perfect human, and the other gods would judge the results. Zeus approached his task with characteristic confidence. Drawing upon his experience as king of the gods, he sought to create a being of pure strength and ambition. His creation would embody the qualities he most admired: power, leadership, and unstoppable drive. From the sacred clay of Mount Olympus, Zeus molded a tall, muscular figure with piercing eyes and a commanding presence. He named his creation Kratos, meaning power. Hera took a different approach. Having watched over countless marriages and families, she understood the complexity of human nature. She worked methodically, carefully blending qualities she knew were essential for a truly fulfilled life. Her creation, whom she named Sophia, meaning wisdom, possessed beauty that came from inner grace rather than mere appearance. When both deities unveiled their creations before the assembled gods, the contrast was striking. Kratos stood proud and powerful, radiating strength and authority. His very presence commanded attention, and his voice carried the weight of command. He spoke of grand ambitions, of conquering challenges and achieving glory. Zeus beamed with pride at his creation, certain he had captured the essence of human perfection. Sophia, however, moved with gentle purpose. She spoke not of personal glory, but of understanding, compassion, and the connections between all things. Her wisdom showed in how she listened as much as she spoke, and in her ability to see beyond surface appearances to deeper truths. Hera watched quietly, knowing her creation embodied something more subtle, but no less powerful than raw strength. The gods began their evaluation, observing how each creation interacted with the world around them. Kratos proved himself capable of great achievements, leading others and accomplishing mighty deeds. Yet he struggled with pride, and often found himself lonely at the heights of his success. His strength, while impressive, created distance between himself and others. Sophia demonstrated different gifts. She built bridges between people, solved conflicts through understanding, and showed how true strength often lies in vulnerability and connection. Her influence spread not through force, but through the ripple effects of wisdom shared and kindness shown. She proved that leadership could be quiet yet profound. As the contest drew to its conclusion, something unexpected happened. Kratos and Sophia encountered each other, and their interaction revealed the truth both Zeus and Hera had overlooked. The perfect human being wasn't about embodying either pure strength or pure wisdom. It was about the balance between the two. The assembled gods declared the contest a draw, but the lesson was clear. Humans needed both the ambition of Zeus's creation and the wisdom of Hera's. They required the drive to achieve great things and the heart to do so with compassion. The perfect human wasn't a single ideal, but a constant journey between these complementary forces. This myth teaches us that perfection doesn't lie in extremes, but in balance. Zeus and Hera's contest revealed that human nature is too complex to be reduced to a single set of traits. We are at our best when we combine strength with wisdom, ambition with compassion, and personal achievement with connection to others. The story's influence resonates through Greek art and literature, where heroes are often portrayed struggling between these competing aspects of human nature. It reminds us that our greatest challenge isn't becoming perfect in one way, but finding harmony between our different qualities and potential. Today, as we grapple with questions of human potential and achievement, this ancient tale offers timeless wisdom. The perfect human being isn't created by gods, but emerges through our own journey to balance the many aspects of our nature. In this way, Zeus and Hera's contest wasn't really about creating the perfect human. It was about understanding what makes us perfectly human. Can the love of a father overcome the wheels of destiny? In the great epic Mahabharata, there exists a heart-wrenching tale that explores this very question, the story of Shrutesna, the valiant son of Karna, whose fate was sealed before he drew his first breath. In the vast tapestry of the Mahabharata, Karna stands as one of its most complex characters. Born to Kunti and the sun god Surya, abandoned at birth, and raised by a charioteer, Karna rose to become one of the greatest warriors of his age. But few know the tale of his son Shrutesna, whose life and death would add another layer to Karna's tragic existence. Shrutesna was born to Karna and his wife Vrashali, growing up in the shadow of his father's greatness. From an early age, he showed promise as a warrior, inheriting his father's extraordinary skills in archery and warfare. Like the morning sun reflecting in clear waters, Shrutesna mirrored his father's values of honor, loyalty, and unwavering dedication to truth. But dark clouds had gathered long before Shrutesna's birth. Years earlier, Karna had been cursed by Parashurama, his guru, for concealing his true identity as a kshatriya while learning the sacred arts of warfare. The curse stated that Karna would forget his divine weapons at the moment of his greatest need. However, what Karna didn't know was that this curse would cast its shadow not just on him, but also on his beloved son. As Shrutesna grew into a young man, he became known for his valor and righteousness. He carried himself with the same dignity as his father, earning respect from both allies and enemies. In the courts of Hastinapura, where Karna served as the king of anger and a close friend to Duryodhana, Shrutesna was regarded as a prince worthy of his noble lineage. The winds of war began to blow across Bharatavarsha as tensions between the Pandavas and Kauravas reached their breaking point. As preparations for the great Kurukshetra war began, Shrutesna, now a skilled warrior, stood ready to fight alongside his father. The bond between father and son had grown stronger through years of training, shared values, and mutual respect. But fate had woven a different pattern in its cosmic tapestry. On the 13th day of the war, Shrutesna found himself facing the mighty Arjuna, his father's greatest rival, and unknown to both, his own uncle. The young warrior charged forward with the confidence of youth and the skill of intense training, but destiny had other plans. In that crucial moment, as father and son fought together against Arjuna, the curse of Parashurama manifested itself in an unexpected way. Karna, witnessing his son in danger, reached for his most powerful weapon to protect him. But the curse took effect, making him forget the divine incantations needed to summon his celestial weapons. What followed was a scene of heart-wrenching tragedy. Despite Karna's desperate attempts to protect his son, Shrutesna fell to Arjuna's arrows. The young warrior died in his father's arms, his last words expressing pride in living and dying as Karna's son. The battlefield fell silent, as if nature itself mourned the loss of such a promising young life. This moment marked a turning point in the Great War. Karna's grief transformed into a burning determination, but the loss of Shrutesna would haunt him until his own death days later. The tragedy exemplified the cruel workings of karma and destiny in the grand narrative of the Mahabharata. The story of Shrutesna teaches us profound truths about the nature of existence in Hindu philosophy. It shows how the threads of karma weave through generations, how the actions of the past shape the present, and how even the mightiest warriors cannot escape their destined path. This tale also illustrates the concept of dharma in its most complex form. Shrutesna followed his dharma as a son and warrior, fighting alongside his father even though it led to his death. Karna, torn between his duty as a father and his obligations as a warrior, faced the ultimate test of his principles. The relationship between Karna and Shrutesna reflects the eternal bond between father and son, a love that transcends the boundaries of life and death. Their story reminds us that even in the face of inevitable fate, the dignity with which we face our destiny defines our character. In the grand scheme of the Mahabharata, Shrutesna's death serves as a poignant reminder that war spares no one. that the cycles of karma affect both the mighty and the humble. His story, though brief, illuminates the complex interplay between free will and destiny that lies at the heart of Hindu philosophy. As we reflect on this tale today, we're reminded that our lives, like Shrutesna's, are part of a larger cosmic design. While we may not control our destiny, we can choose how we face it with courage, dignity, and unwavering adherence to our Dharma, just as Shrutesna did in his final moments on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Have you ever wondered why wine holds such a sacred place in human culture? The answer lies in an ancient tale of divine discovery, where a god's curiosity changed human civilization forever. In the sun-drenched hills of ancient Greece, where gods walked among mortals, lived Dionysus, the divine son of Zeus and the mortal Semele. Unlike his more austere divine siblings, Dionysus possessed an insatiable curiosity about the mortal world and its natural wonders. He spent his days wandering through lush valleys and dense forests, discovering the secrets of plants and their fruits. One particularly memorable autumn day, Dionysus noticed something peculiar. In a secluded grove, he found wild grapes that had fallen into a natural hollow in a rock. The grapes had been crushed under their own weight and left exposed to the warm Mediterranean sun. Intrigued by their transformed appearance, Dionysus approached the hollow. The air was thick with an unfamiliar yet enticing aroma. The crushed grapes had transformed into a mysterious liquid, their juice altered by time and nature's own alchemy. Dionysus, driven by his divine curiosity, tasted the strange liquid. Immediately, his senses awakened to something entirely new, the first wine ever created. The drink filled him with a warm, pleasant sensation. He felt his spirit soar and his mind expand with creative possibilities. This was no ordinary fruit juice. This was something magical, something that could bridge the gap between the mortal and divine realms. Dionysus knew he had discovered something extraordinary. Excited by his discovery, Dionysus began experimenting. He gathered more grapes and refined the process of fermentation. He learned that different varieties of grapes produced unique flavors, and that time played a crucial role in the transformation. Through divine inspiration and patient observation, he mastered the art of winemaking. But Dionysus was not content to keep this discovery to himself. He believed wine could bring moments of divine joy to mortal lives. He began teaching chosen mortals the secrets of viticulture, how to cultivate vines, when to harvest grapes, and the delicate process of fermentation. These first winemakers became his devoted followers, spreading his knowledge throughout the Mediterranean. As wine spread across Greece, it became more than just a drink. It transformed into a symbol of civilization, a crucial element in religious ceremonies, and a catalyst for social bonding. The symposium, a gathering where Greeks would drink wine and engage in philosophical discussions, became a cornerstone of their culture. Wine brought people together, sparked creativity, and helped forge connections between strangers. However, Dionysus also taught an important lesson about responsibility. Wine had the power to elevate the spirit, but it could also cloud judgment when consumed without moderation. This duality became part of his divine nature. He was both the bringer of joy and ecstasy, and a reminder of the need for balance and wisdom. The gift of wine changed how humans celebrated, mourned, and connected with the divine. During festivals honoring Dionysus, people would drink wine and perform elaborate theatrical performances, giving birth to Greek theater. The god's influence extended beyond mere intoxication. He became associated with creative inspiration, religious ecstasy, and the breaking down of social barriers. In ancient Greek art, Dionysus was often depicted crowned with grape vines, holding a thyrsus. a staff topped with a pine cone and wrapped with ivy. His followers, the Maenads and Satyrs, represented the wild and free spirit that wine could unleash. These artistic representations spread throughout the ancient world, influencing cultures far beyond Greece. The legacy of Dionysus's discovery endures to this day. Wine remains a symbol of celebration, communion, and sophisticated pleasure. The ancient Greeks' understanding of wine's dual nature, its ability to both elevate and potentially harm, continues to influence how we approach this divine drink. Every time we raise a glass of wine, we're participating in a tradition that began with a curious god's discovery in a sun-warmed hollow. Wine connects us to thousands of years of human civilization, to ancient rituals and celebrations, and to the eternal human desire to touch something divine. The story of Dionysus and wine reminds us that the most profound discoveries often come from careful observation of nature's mysteries. It teaches us that gifts, especially divine ones, must be approached with both joy and responsibility. In every glass of wine, we can still taste echoes of that first miraculous transformation, when a god's curiosity gave humanity one of its most enduring pleasures. Imagine a time before time itself, when the universe was nothing but endless darkness and swirling chaos. From this primordial void emerged the most powerful and fundamental force of nature. Gaia, the Earth Mother, the very ground beneath our feet, and the source of all life as we know it. In the beginning, there was only chaos, a gaping emptiness that contained all possibilities. From this cosmic soup, Gaia arose, bringing form and substance to the formless universe. She was not just another goddess. She was the Earth itself, the living, breathing planet that would become home to gods and mortals alike. Picture Gaia as the ultimate mother figure, vast as the mountains, deep as the oceans, and as nurturing as the fertile soil that gives life to every plant and tree. Without a mate, she gave birth to the sky itself, Uranus, a being as vast and blue as the heavens above. She created the mountains, their peaks reaching toward her son's domain, and the depths of the seas, ruled by her other offspring, Pontus. But Gaia's creative force didn't stop there. With Uranus as her partner, she bore the mighty Titans, 12 powerful beings who would shape the world to come. Among them were Ocean, who would encircle the world with his endless waters, and Rhea, who would become mother to the Olympian gods themselves. She also gave birth to the one-eyed Cyclopes and the 100-handed giants called the Hecatoncheires, creatures of tremendous power and frightening appearance. Yet motherhood brought Gaia both joy and sorrow. Uranus, fearful of his children's power, forced them back into Gaia's womb, causing her tremendous pain. Like any mother protecting her children, Gaia refused to accept this cruelty. She crafted a great sickle from adamant and presented it to her youngest Titan son, Cronus, encouraging him to overthrow his tyrannical father. This act set in motion a cycle of divine succession that would shape the future of the cosmos. Cronus used the sickle to castrate Uranus, separating heaven from earth and becoming the new ruler of the universe. From Uranus's blood spilled upon Gaia arose new beings, the giants, the ash tree nymphs called the Meliae, and the fearsome Erinyes, the Furies who would forever pursue those who committed crimes against family. But the cycle of power and rebellion wasn't over. When Cronus began swallowing his own children to prevent them from overthrowing him, Gaia once again intervened. She helped Rhea hide her youngest child, Zeus, ensuring his survival. Zeus would eventually grow up to lead a rebellion against Cronus, establishing the reign of the Olympian gods we know from classical mythology. Throughout these cosmic struggles, Gaia remained a force of both creation and destruction. When the Olympians established their rule, She gave birth to her last and most fearsome offspring, Typhorus, a monster of unprecedented power who nearly overthrew Zeus himself. This wasn't an act of pure malice, but rather Gaia's way of maintaining balance, testing each new regime to ensure they were worthy of their power. Even after the age of cosmic battles ended, Gaia's influence continued. The ancient Greeks understood her as the source of prophetic wisdom, believing that her connection to the very foundations of existence gave her unique insight into the future. The oracle at Delphi was said to have originally belonged to her before passing to Apollo. In every tree that reaches toward the sky, every spring that bubbles up from the ground, and every mountain that pierces the clouds, the Greeks saw Gaia's continuing presence. She was the force that made crops grow, the power that caused earthquakes when angered, and the eternal mother who received all living things back into her embrace upon death. Today, Gaia's legacy lives on not just in mythology, but in how we understand our relationship with the natural world. The modern Gaia hypothesis, which suggests that Earth's living and non-living components form a complex interacting system that maintains the conditions for life, draws its name from this ancient goddess who first embodied the idea of Earth as a living, conscious entity. As we face modern environmental challenges, Gaia's myth reminds us of our deep connection to the Earth and our responsibility to maintain harmony with the natural world. She teaches us that power must be balanced with wisdom, that creation and destruction are part of the same cycle, and that the Earth itself is not just our home, but our mother, deserving of our respect, protection, and reverence. In the end, Gaia's story is not just a tale of cosmic creation, but a reminder of the fundamental forces that shape our existence. The power of motherhood, the importance of balance in nature, and the eternal cycles of creation, destruction, and renewal that continue to this day. From the depths of chaos, she emerged to give birth to our world, and in every aspect of nature, her presence still endures. What drives a mother to murder her husband? In ancient Greece, few tales capture the dark depths of revenge quite like the story of Clytemnestra, the queen who waited 10 years to serve justice as cold as the blade she wielded. Our story begins in Mycenae, a mighty fortress city of ancient Greece, where Queen Clytemnestra ruled alongside her husband, King Agamemnon. Their marriage was once a happy one, blessed with 4 children, including their beloved daughter Iphigenia. But the gods had other plans, and their family's peace would soon shatter like a clay vessel dropped from Olympus itself. When Agamemnon's brother Menelaus lost his wife, Helen, to the Trojan prince Paris, all of Greece prepared for war. 1,000 ships gathered at Aulis, ready to sail for Troy. But the winds refused to blow. Day after day, the massive fleet sat motionless on still waters, as if Poseidon himself held them in contempt. Desperate for answers, Agamemnon consulted the prophet Calchas, who delivered devastating news. The goddess Artemis demanded a sacrifice, Agamemnon's own daughter, Iphigenia. Only her blood could appease the goddess and grant favorable winds for the journey to Troy. Faced with an impossible choice between his daughter and his duty as commander of the Greek forces, Agamemnon made a decision that would seal his fate. He lured Iphigenia to Aulis under the false pretense of marriage to the great warrior Achilles. Instead of a wedding, the young princess found herself on an altar, her own father holding the knife that would end her life. When news reached Clytemnestra of her daughter's death, something broke within her. The loving wife transformed into an instrument of vengeance, her heart hardening like bronze in a smith's forge. For 10 long years, while Agamemnon fought at Troy, she planned her revenge with meticulous precision. During those years of waiting, Clytemnestra found solace in the arms of Aegisthus, Agamemnon's cousin who harbored his own grudge against the king. Together, they ruled Mycenae, preparing for the day when the victorious king would return from war. That day finally arrived in a blaze of triumph. Agamemnon came home as a conqueror, bringing with him Cassandra, a Trojan princess blessed with prophecy, but cursed to never be believed. The citizens of Mycenae celebrated their king's return, but Clytemnestra's smile masked darker intentions. She welcomed her husband with false warmth, ordering servants to lay out purple tapestries fit for a god. Agamemnon, perhaps sensing the impropriety of walking on such luxury, initially refused. But Clytemnestra's persuasive words wore down his resistance, and he strode into his palace like a man walking to his own funeral. In what followed, Clytemnestra revealed the full measure of her vengeance. As Agamemnon bathed, celebrating his homecoming, she trapped him in a net and struck him down with an axe. Cassandra, who had foreseen this bloody end but could do nothing to prevent it, met the same fate. Standing over her husband's body, Clytemnestra declared her act one of justice, not mere murder. She had avenged her daughter, paying blood with blood as the ancient laws demanded. The chorus of citizens, though horrified, could not deny the terrible logic of her revenge. But violence begets violence in the world of Greek tragedy. Clytemnestra's act of vengeance would have far-reaching consequences, especially for her remaining children. Her son Orestes, who had been sent away as a child, would eventually return to avenge his father, continuing the cycle of bloodshed that seemed to curse the house of Atreus. This tale, immortalized in Aeschylus's trilogy, The Austere, speaks to timeless themes that still resonate today. It explores the conflict between justice and revenge, between family loyalty and civic duty, between divine law and human law. Clytemnestra stands as one of literature's most complex characters, a grieving mother, a betrayed wife, a calculating queen, and a ruthless avenger. The story challenges us to consider difficult questions about justice and vengeance. Was Clytemnestra justified in her actions? Does one crime excuse another? Can the cycle of violence ever truly end? These questions haunted the ancient Greeks just as they trouble us today. The influence of this tale extends far beyond ancient Greece. It has inspired countless works of art, literature, and drama across the centuries. Modern adaptations continue to explore its themes, finding new relevance in its examination of justice, gender roles, and the devastating impact of violence on families and societies. In the end, Clytemnestra's story reminds us that revenge, though sweet in the moment, often bears bitter fruit. It shows us how a single act of violence can ripple through generations, leaving no one untouched by its destructive wake. Perhaps most importantly, it warns us that justice, when pursued without mercy, can become indistinguishable from the very crimes it seeks to punish. Have you ever wondered who invented the first game of chance? The answer lies not in the smoke-filled backrooms of medieval taverns, but in the gleaming halls of Mount Olympus itself, where Titch, the goddess of fortune, first introduced mortals to the thrilling world of gambling. In ancient Greece, where gods walked among mortals and fate intertwined with daily life, Titch stood as a unique figure among the pantheon. Neither wholly benevolent nor malicious, she embodied the unpredictable nature of fortune itself. With her cornucopia in one hand and a ship's rudder in the other, she guided the destinies of both gods and mortals through the uncertain waters of chance. The story begins in the bustling city-state of Corinth, where Titch was particularly revered. According to ancient tales, she observed how humans constantly sought ways to glimpse their futures and understand the will of the gods. Some consulted oracles, others read omens in bird flights, but Titch saw an opportunity to teach mortals a profound lesson about the nature of fate itself. One moonlit night, she appeared to a group of merchants in the Agora of Corinth. These weren't ordinary traders. They were known for their clever minds and endless debates about destiny and free will. Titch approached them in the form of a mysterious woman, her face partially concealed by a shimmering veil, carrying what appeared to be simple pieces of bone. "You seek to understand the ways of fate," she told them, her voice carrying the weight of divine authority. "Yet you fail to grasp its true nature. Let me show you how fortune truly works." With these words, she revealed the first dice ever created, carved from the knucklebones of a celestial deer that roamed the slopes of Mount Olympus. Titch taught the merchants the first games of chance, showing how the dice could fall in different ways, each representing a different outcome. She explained that just as in life, players could make choices, but the final result always contained an element of uncertainty. The merchants were captivated, spending the entire night learning various games under her guidance. As word spread throughout Greece, more and more people began crafting their own dice and developing new games. Titch's invention quickly became more than mere entertainment. It evolved into a mirror of life itself. The Greeks saw in these games a perfect metaphor for human existence, a delicate balance between skill and chance, choice and fate. But Titch's lesson didn't stop with dice. She gradually introduced other games of chance to the mortals. She taught them to draw lots, inspired the creation of early playing cards, and even suggested the first betting games. Each new game carried its own symbolic meaning, teaching different aspects about fortune's fickle nature. The goddesses' games spread from Greece across the ancient world. In Sparta, soldiers used them to teach strategic thinking. In Athens, philosophers incorporated them into discussions about free will and determinism. Even the oracles of Delphi sometimes used Titch's dice to provide answers to seekers, believing they carried divine wisdom. However, Titch's gifts came with a warning. She appeared in dreams to those who became too obsessed with gambling, reminding them that the games were meant to teach wisdom, not feed greed. She cautioned that while chance could bring great fortune, it could just as easily take it away. The wise, she counseled, would understand that life, like her games, required both prudent judgment and acceptance of uncertainty. The influence of Titch's games extended far beyond ancient Greece. The Romans later adopted her as Fortuna, spreading gambling games throughout their vast empire. From the dice games of Roman legionaries to the elaborate gambling houses of Pompeii, her influence shaped how ancient peoples understood and interacted with chance. Today, whenever someone rolls dice, shuffles cards, or places a bet, they're participating in an activity whose divine origins trace back to Titch's ancient lesson. Modern casinos, with their promises of fortune and risk, still echo the fundamental truths she sought to teach. That life is a mixture of skill and chance, that fortune favors the bold but humbles the reckless. The story of Titch and her games reminds us that gambling has always been more than mere entertainment. It represents humanity's eternal dance with chance and fate, our desperate desire to understand the unknowable, and our need to find meaning in the random turns of fortune's wheel. In museums around the world, ancient Greek dice and gaming pieces still survive, silent testimonies to Titch's enduring influence. These artifacts, some over 2,000 years old, connect us directly to those first nights in Corinth, when a goddess taught mortals to embrace the uncertainty of existence through play. So the next time you see dice being rolled or cards being dealt, remember Titch, the divine inventor of games of chance. Remember that in teaching humans to gamble, she wasn't just creating entertainment. She was offering a profound lesson about life itself. that while we can't control every outcome, we can learn to face uncertainty with wisdom, grace, and understanding. Have you ever wondered who gave the Greek gods their power? Behind the mighty Zeus and the Olympian hierarchy stands a force even more fundamental: Kratos, the divine embodiment of strength, power, and authority. This is the story of how the very concept of leadership came to be in Greek mythology. In the vast cosmos of Greek mythology, Kratos isn't just another deity, he's the very essence of authority itself. Born to Pallas and Styx, Kratos emerged as one of the most powerful forces in the divine realm. Along with his siblings Bia, Force, Nike, Victory, and Zealous, Zeal, he helped establish the fundamental principles of power that would govern both gods and mortals. But why does Kratos matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Picture the universe before order existed. Chaos reigned supreme, with no structure or hierarchy to guide divine or mortal affairs. The ancient Greeks believed that without Kratos, there would be no foundation for leadership, no basis for authority, and no system to maintain cosmic order. When Zeus challenged the Titans for control of the universe, it was Kratos who played a pivotal role. The ancient texts tell us that Kratos, along with his siblings, was among the first to pledge allegiance to Zeus. This wasn't just a simple act of taking sides. It was a fundamental moment that established the very concept of divine authority. By choosing Zeus, Kratos essentially created the template for all future power structures. Think of Kratos as the divine architect of authority. He didn't just support Zeus's rise to power, he helped create the entire system that made leadership possible. Through his influence, the Greeks came to understand that true authority requires both strength and legitimacy. This wasn't about brute force alone. It was about creating a sustainable system of governance. The myths tell us that Kratos became Zeus's enforcer, carrying out the king of gods' commands with unwavering dedication. When Zeus needed to punish Prometheus for stealing fire, it was Kratos who led the charge. This famous myth shows us how authority systems work. There must be consequences for challenging established order, even if the challenger's motives seem noble. But Kratos' influence extended far beyond Olympus. The ancient Greeks saw his hand in every aspect of their society. From the authority of kings and rulers to the power of military commanders and heads of households, Kratos' principles shaped how humans understood and implemented leadership. The Greeks recognized that power without structure leads to chaos. Through Kratos, they developed sophisticated systems of authority that balanced might with right. City-states established laws, councils made decisions, and leaders earned their positions through merit and divine favor, all reflecting Kratos' influence on how power should be wielded. This system wasn't perfect, just as no human institution is perfect. The myths show us countless examples of power struggles, challenges to authority, and the consequences of both good and bad leadership. Yet the fundamental principles established by Kratos remained. Authority must be both strong and legitimate to endure. The legacy of Kratos extends into modern times. When we talk about checks and balances, legitimate authority, or the social contract, we're drawing on concepts that the ancient Greeks first explored through their understanding of Kratos. Even today's political systems reflect this ancient wisdom about how power should be structured and maintained. Kratos teaches us that true authority isn't just about having power, it's about using that power wisely and justly. The Greeks understood that leadership requires a delicate balance between strength and wisdom, force and fairness. Through Kratos, they created a model of authority that continues to influence how we think about leadership today. In our modern world, As we grapple with questions of leadership and authority, the lessons of Kratos remain relevant. Who has the right to lead? How should power be distributed? What makes authority legitimate? These are questions that the ancient Greeks explored through their myths, and they're questions we still wrestle with today. Kratos' story reminds us that power structures don't just happen by accident. They're created and maintained through conscious effort and careful balance. Whether in ancient Greece or the modern world, effective leadership requires more than just strength. It needs legitimacy, wisdom, and the support of those being led. As we conclude our journey through this fundamental aspect of Greek mythology, remember that Kratos' influence extends far beyond ancient tales. Every time we participate in organized society, elect leaders, or follow established rules, we're participating in systems that trace their origins back to these ancient concepts of authority and power. The next time you think about leadership or authority, remember Kratos. Behind every successful system of governance, every effective leader, and every stable society, you'll find echoes of the principles he established at the dawn of Greek mythology. Some forces truly are timeless, and the power of Kratos continues to shape our world today. Time halts at the edge of terror, freezing flesh into stone and fear into silence. In the myths of ancient Greece, this was not metaphor, but fate, a stillness cast by gods and monsters upon those who stepped beyond the bounds of mortal reverence. In ancient Greece, this wasn't just a frightening thought. It was a very real fate that awaited those who dared to challenge the gods or gaze upon the forbidden. The power of petrification, the ability to turn living beings into stone, was one of the most dreaded supernatural abilities in Greek mythology. It represented not just death, but eternal imprisonment in a mineral prison, forever conscious yet forever still. This fascinating and terrifying power appears throughout Greek mythology, weaving tales of hubris, punishment, and transformation. Let's begin with the most famous wielder of this power, Medusa, the Gorgon whose very gaze could turn flesh to stone. But Medusa wasn't always a monster. Once, she was a beautiful priestess of Athene, with flowing locks that caught the eye of Poseidon himself. Their encounter in Athene's temple, whether consensual or not, so enraged the goddess that she transformed Medusa's beautiful hair into writhing snakes and cursed her with a petrifying gaze. Medusa's transformation speaks to the complex nature of divine punishment in Greek mythology. Was she truly the villain, or was she a victim of divine jealousy? Her power to turn others to stone became both her curse and her protection, as anyone who looked directly at her would instantly become a statue, frozen in their final moment of horror. The hero Perseus would eventually face this terrifying creature, armed with gifts from the gods, a mirrored shield from Athene, winged sandals from Hermes, and a cap of invisibility from Hades. By using the mirror's reflection to avoid direct eye contact, Perseus managed to behead Medusa. Even in death, her severed head retained its petrifying power, which Perseus would later use as a weapon. But Medusa isn't the only tale of petrification in Greek mythology. Consider the story of Atlas's daughter, who was turned to stone by Zeus to protect her from harm, or the tale of Niobe, whose hubris led to unimaginable tragedy. Niobe, queen of Thebes, had 14 children, 7 sons and 7 daughters. She boasted that she was superior to Leto, mother of Apollo and Artemis, who had only 2 children. This fatal pride led to divine retribution. Apollo and Artemis, enraged by Niobe's insult to their mother, slew all 14 of Niobe's children with their arrows. Witnessing the death of her children, Niobe's grief was so overwhelming that she fled to Mount Sipylus. There, Zeus took pity on her endless mourning and transformed her into stone. Yet even as rock, it's said that tears continue to flow from her stone form, creating a natural spring that exists to this day. The Greeks also told of Anaxarete, a noble maiden of Cyprus, who spurned the love of Iphias with such cruelty that he hanged himself at her doorstep. When she looked unmoved even at his funeral procession, Aphrodite turned her to stone, preserving her cold heart in an equally cold form for eternity. These tales of petrification often served as warnings about pride, cruelty, and the consequences of disrespecting the gods. The transformation into stone represented a fitting punishment. Those who showed stone-cold hearts toward others often ended up literally turned to stone themselves. The power of petrification appears in other cultures' mythologies as well, suggesting a universal human fear of being frozen in time, unable to move or speak, yet still conscious. This theme resonates through the ages, appearing in modern stories from fantasy novels to superhero comics. In ancient Greek art, petrified figures were depicted with extraordinary detail, capturing the moment of transformation between flesh and stone. These artworks often showed the horror and anguish of the transformation, serving as powerful reminders of the gods' authority and the consequences of human hubris. The psychological impact of petrification myths continues to fascinate us today. The idea of being conscious, yet unable to move, taps into primal human fears. It represents a fate worse than death, eternal awareness, without the ability to interact with the world around you. These myths also reflect the Greek understanding of transformation and permanence. Stone, being one of the most durable materials in nature, represented an unchangeable fate. Once transformed, there was usually no return to human form, making petrification one of the most definitive and dreaded punishments in Greek mythology. Modern archaeologists have even suggested that some of these myths might have been inspired by actual stone formations or fossils found in ancient Greece. Natural rock formations that resembled human figures might have sparked stories of people turned to stone by divine power. As we reflect on these ancient tales of petrification, we're reminded of their enduring relevance. They warn us about the dangers of excessive pride, the importance of respecting others, and the permanent consequences our actions can have. In a world where we often feel invincible, these myths remind us of our vulnerability and the importance of humility before forces greater than ourselves. Whether wielded by Medusa, the gods, or other mythological figures, the power of petrification remains one of the most compelling and terrifying elements of Greek mythology. It continues to captivate our imagination, reminding us that sometimes the most frightening fate isn't death, but the eternal stillness of stone. Have you ever gazed at the night sky and wondered why the moon waxes and wanes? The ancient Hindu texts reveal a fascinating tale of love, jealousy, and cosmic consequences that gave birth to the celestial constellations we see today. In the vast cosmic dance of creation, Daksha Prajapati, one of the primary creators of the universe, had 27 daughters of unparalleled beauty. These maidens possessed grace that could enchant even the celestial beings. Their father arranged their marriage to Chandra, the moon god, known for his mesmerizing brilliance and divine charm. Chandra, resplendent in his silver glory, took all 27 sisters as his wives. These divine unions were meant to establish harmony in the cosmic order. Each of these wives would later become the 27 nakshatras, or lunar mansions, through which the moon travels in its monthly journey across the night sky. Among his wives, Chandra found himself increasingly drawn to Rohini, whose name means the Red One. Her beauty and grace captivated him so completely that he began spending most of his time with her, neglecting his other wives. Rohini, who would become the star Aldebaran in the modern astronomical terms, basked in Chandra's undivided attention and love. The other wives, feeling abandoned and heartbroken, approached their father Daksha. They wept as they shared their sorrow, speaking of lonely nights while Chandra remained in Rohini's mansion. These daughters, who would become stars like Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, and others, sought justice from their powerful father. Daksha's anger blazed like a cosmic fire upon hearing of this injustice. He summoned Chandra to his celestial court and spoke words that would forever change the moon's nature. For your transgression of Dharma, for showing such partiality among your wives, I curse you to wane gradually day by day, declared Daksha. The curse took immediate effect. Chandra, who once shone with full brilliance, began to lose his light. Day by day, his radiance diminished until he was barely visible in the night sky. This waning affected not just the moon but all life on Earth, as his light was essential for the growth of plants, the flow of tides, and the balance of nature. The other gods, concerned about the cosmic imbalance, approached Daksha for a solution. After much deliberation, Daksha modified his curse. The moon would still wane, but only for half the month. During the other half, he would regain his brightness gradually. This cycle would continue forever, teaching the importance of balance and equal treatment. This is why we see the moon's phases today. From the full moon to the new moon, and back again, this eternal cycle reminds us of the consequences of favoritism and the importance of treating all with equal respect. Each of Chandra's wives became a nakshatra, forming a celestial map through which the moon travels. The 27 nakshatras each possess unique characteristics and divine energies. Rohini represents creativity and fertility. Ashwini brings healing and swift progress. Bharani teaches the power of transformation. Each constellation carries forward these divine qualities, influencing life on Earth as the moon passes through their domains. In Hindu astrology, these nakshatras play a crucial role in determining auspicious times, understanding personal characteristics, and mapping life's journey. They're not just distant stars, but living energies that connect the cosmic dance with our earthly existence. This ancient tale carries timeless wisdom about the consequences of our actions and the importance of maintaining harmony in relationships. Just as the moon must travel through all 27 constellations, we too must learn to balance our attention and affection in our relationships. The next time you observe the moon's changing phases, remember this divine drama that unfolds eternally in the night sky. Each phase tells a story of love, justice, and cosmic balance. The waning moon reminds us of the price of partiality, while the waxing moon speaks of hope and restoration. In this grand celestial design, we find a profound truth. Everything in creation is interconnected. The moon's journey through the nakshatras maintains cosmic harmony, influences Earth's rhythms, and guides human destiny. This eternal cycle, born from a tale of divine love and celestial justice, continues to illuminate our nights and inspire our understanding of the cosmic order. May this ancient wisdom help us navigate our own paths with greater awareness and balance, just as the moon navigates the eternal dance of the nakshatras.